6 Ellsworth City Council meeting to order. First on the agenda, the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Next on the agenda is the rules of order. We follow Robert's Rules of Order for the conduct of this meeting. And just on that, I would ask all counselors that if you'd like, when you'd like to speak on any agenda items, that please be recognized first by the chair so we can make sure we have an orderly meeting. Likewise for the public, when you do approach the podium, we ask that you state your name and town of residence when you speak. Item agenda number 4, adoption of the Ellsworth City Council meeting minutes from both October 20, 2025 and November 17th, 2025. I have a motion from the council.
I move to adopt the City Council minutes.
From both meetings.
Yes.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded from Councilor Halloran. Any further?
First, second?
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Councilor White is so unanimous. Agenda item number 5, the presentation of awards. We have 2 awards tonight for our city staff for their recognition of their service. City of Ellsworth proudly presents this certificate of service to Thomas Canavan in recognition of 5 years of service in the fire department. His devotion to duty and loyalty to the community have contributed to the improvement of the city of Ellsworth. My understanding is Thomas is not here tonight, but we thank him very much for his service to the city. Second. The City of Ellsworth proudly presents this certificate of service to Corporal Sean Merchant in recognition of 10 years of service in the police department. His devotion to duty and loyalty to the community have contributed to the improvement of the City of Ellsworth. So I'd like to thank Corporal Merchant for 10 years of service. Okay, agenda item number 6, City Manager Report. Manager Pierce.
Thank you so much, Chair Lyons. I'll start off with a few thank yous. First is to all the volunteers and staff and the council who showed up for our Christmas tree parade and the Christmas tree lighting. I think it was just incredible. I think they said it was probably the most floats they've had in a long time. I know the Christmas tree lighting, I think from last year was we amped it up a bit, and we had the fire pits, we had s'mores for the kids, the activities, great band that played. Chair Lyons gave an okay speech, and it was just such an incredible community-driven event, and just loved every minute of it. I saw an article in the Bangor Daily News about hundreds showing up for the Bangor Christmas tree lighting and parade, and gosh, there seemed like there was thousands out here in Ellsworth, so that was excellent to see. The other piece is a big thank you to the Ellsworth Rotary. I think they had their community service program, the gifting experience here, but with our local business owners, helping kids from the area pick out gifts and wrap them for their families, and it was just such a incredible experience. I know, I feel like Ellsworth is just so lucky to have the Rotary, and they're just such amazing community-driven volunteers that, this is one of the reasons I love taking this job, was just knowing that the Rotary and our other community volunteer organizations are just so strong. I know we have a lot to get through in the agenda tonight, so I'm going to try to keep it somewhat brief, but we have an upcoming workshop on January 5th where we'll talk about some more items for the city, including a preview of January's council meeting for recreational cannabis ordinance. And then we'll have a street scan presentation on kind of the work that we did this late summer on the streets and the sidewalks, on kind of the condition assessment on how everything is. And then looking a little bit more ahead, we have ordinance reform coming up, I think in either February or March, and then our TIF district redesign plan, which we heard an initial presentation on, will be shortly thereafter. And then further down the road, our 1, 5, and 10-year capital improvement plan project, which is really, I think, the kind of one of the final pieces. It's actually mandated in the charter. It was left by the wayside for about 5 years, but we're going to get all that capital improvement planning back in order so we know what we have for our full depreciating assets and can move forward. And then, obviously, budget. We had a big management meeting last week, and we've come a long way since when I arrived. You know, there was sort of just loose pieces of paper from each department being handed to city councilors to kind of put together a $55 million budget, and now we have a very defined process in our budgeting systems. It was probably the most broken piece of city government upon arrival, and I know with the culture of that team that we built in there is becoming, I think, one of the best in class in the state of Maine. So we got still some work to do. We've been working in our finance committee meetings to really dial in on the audit findings and get back to perfect finances here in Ellsworth. We've made a lot of progress, but that budget obviously is a big part of it. We've got some headwinds with bills coming due from the bonds on the roads that we repaired this year. We have, I think, a union negotiation with the school that could be a fair amount of increased funding depending on how those negotiations go. And, you know, so it's kind of been a lean year. We've made that clear to management. Last year, we were able to get to that 2.9% for inflation. That's still my goal for this year, but, you know, so lots of work to be done there. And then that's pretty much it for me. I know I actually just left an Ellsworth Business Development Corporation meeting and had a really good discussion with them, and maybe bringing back the state of the city. I think former council chair and city manager Michelle Beal used to discuss kind of once a year, I think in January, her state of the city presentation. So thinking of maybe that could be with the chamber and the eggs breakfast that they do, just to give a little bit. I know we do the month to month, as you mentioned, Nancy. When are we getting to the fun stuff? And you know, we've kind of been putting out the fires for a long time now. So let's start looking ahead, get a little more outlook on where we're going as a city, and I think that'll be exciting.
Great.
Great.
Thank you, Manager Pierce. With that, we're on to agenda item number 8, committee reports. Are there any councilors that would like to report out on any committee work? Councilor Smith.
Thank you. I can report on the Cemetery Commission. They met last week. We will have an incoming member for the council vote next month. Lots of good energy in the process. They are developing and prioritizing strategies to reach the mission of the commission. And the next step will be developing standard operating procedures, processes that haven't been in place before for Juniper Cemetery, that the city has taken sort of under our wing, and then more broadly for cemeteries. Speaking of Juniper, that we were, Roddy led on being able to remove a white pine. That was definitely putting at risk some of the headstones and any people who would have come to visit. We identified it probably about a year ago as a problem, and that's been taken care of. And then also thanks to Tina, who staffs the commission, and to the finance department that's been able to unravel and organize the various accounts with the Cemetery Commission. So we've got good energy, regular meetings, a new member coming in, and some good outcomes even now. So
Great.
Cemetery Commission's rocking.
Excellent. Thank you. Any other councilors with updates regarding committee work? Councilor White, anything from your? Okay.
I know, I usually have something to say, but I don't think I do right now.
Okay, well, thank you. Okay.
As far as Historic Preservation Commission goes, we did not meet this December. That meeting had to be canceled. There was just too much going on to get people in. We will meet again in January and are going to concentrate on addressing the membership problems that we have right now and see if we can't find a way to solve that. And also we're
So
going...
just to, you're looking for some more members for the?
Yeah, we're short.
Okay.
I'm not even sure at this point that I don't know who I'm speaking as now, ad hoc chair of the Preservation Commission or City Council. I don't know that it's going to be possible for me to stay. That's just for the time commitment. But I don't want to walk out on it until we can get it, if that's okay with everyone. And certainly if anything comes up here that has to do with that, I'll just recuse myself. So yeah, we're going to talk about membership, and we're also going to talk about refining our mission, so that people who are coming on board have a more concise idea, a firmer idea of what they're going to be doing and what we do. So those are our two priorities for January.
Great. Well, thank you for the update. Any other counselors, committees, updates? Okay, seeing none. Citizen comments. Now is the time of the meeting where we asked if anyone from any citizens would like to approach and provide comments on issues that are not on tonight's agenda. We invite you to do so. We ask you keep your comments to 3 minutes or less, and when you do approach, please state your name and town of residence, if you could. So with that, are there any citizen comments?
Good evening. My name is Luna Pinder. I am the former assistant assessor and a concerned member of the public. I currently reside in Franklin, but I have been looking for a house in Ellsworth for about 2 or 3 years now. I am here today to address the proposed plan revealed at the October 20th council meeting. The proposal was to hold a vote to dissolve the City of Ellsworth's assessing department in its entirety, and then approve a fully outsourcing all assessing services to a private consulting firm.
This matter is on the agenda for tonight, so we'd ask.
The matter on the agenda is for RSC, I believe, the change in consulting, not the assessing department as a whole.
I'm going to ask that you reserve your comments for, if you'd like to speak about the assessing department for that matter on the agenda, please. Thank you.
Roger Gilly, resident of Ellsworth. I was watching the video on YouTube this morning, or this afternoon, about the meeting that happened this morning. And it was talking about the bucket truck. And months ago, after we received or purchased the bucket truck, I'd brought light to the part where the bucket truck wasn't certified, as far as the boom goes and stuff like that. And, in the meeting before that, there was discussion about why the bucket truck wasn't used to set the tree, and why we have it if we can't use it, and why we're renting a lift. So I guess my question is more towards Charlie or whatever, but, my question is when I brought light to it, that it wasn't certified, why wasn't somebody looking into this months ago, and instead of waiting till now to figure out that it wasn't certified when I brought light to it that it wasn't certified.
This is just citizen comments.
Right, and that's a citizen comment, it's a question.
We're not going to provide any answer, but
Okay.
thank you for your comments. Any other members of the public that would like to provide public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on to counselor comments. Counselors, now is your opportunity to provide comments on matters that are not on the agenda tonight, and we ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Are there any counselors that would like to provide any comments tonight? Counselor Smith.
I would like to thank the members of city staff who helped organize a wonderful city orientation tour. It helped frame a lot of areas where I was not familiar with and was invaluable, so just thank you for that hard work, and thank you for all our hard work you do.
Thank you. Counselor Shea?
I went with Marina, with the tour of the city facilities and the staff, and that kudos. You guys are doing it, everybody, guys and girls are doing a great job. I've seen Roddy's guys out there, and they were working very, very hard with I stopped and talked with them, and I thanked one of them for doing You know, it's not easy out there walking around in the cold, picking up trash. And so, you got everybody from the City Hall office and all the way to Parks and Rec. You guys are doing a good job.
Councilor Highland?
I do have a comment. It's a different comment that I had planned on, but I've seen this young lady get shut down twice from speaking. In October, I saw her get crowded off the podium, and she has information that I'd like to hear. And now I'm seeing this again. Why? Why can't we hear what she has to say?
Well, typically, I don't respond to councilor comments, but I would say when we get to the matter of the assessing department, she's free to provide public comments to you. That's our rules, if it matters on
Sounds
the
like it's a
agenda.
little off topic for the agenda item to me, but, okay. I don't think it's fair.
Councilor Martineau?
No.
Councilor Smith?
Nothing, thanks.
I'd just also like to, along the lines of noting how the success the city's Christmas parade and holiday gathering was with the tree lighting. It's clear that a lot of work went into it, both from the members of the public that participated, all the organizations that helped make it happen, and then especially the city staff. I would say this is the best one that I've seen in Ellsworth since I've been here for a decade, and it was a real pleasure to be a part of it and felt the community and festive cheer. So thank you to everyone, especially the staff here tonight. With that, we're on to new business. New business, public hearing and action on the application for renewal of the following leases. Katina Stanwood, CBA Black Moon Public House, 142 Main Street, for renewal of a city Class B license, Vicular Liquor and Amusement, and renewal of a state Class 1 Malt Liquor, Wine, and Spirits license. And Acadia Village Resort Homeowners Association, DBA Acadia Village Resort, 50 Resort Way, for renewal of a city lodging license. This is a public hearing, so I will open the matter to the public. If there are any comments on these business licenses from the public, they'd approach and speak. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Councilors, any comments or questions regarding these two licenses? And the normal question, we assume all the paperwork's in order? Great, thank you. Seeing nothing else from the council, all those in favors?
We need a motion.
We do.
I'm happy to get that
I
for you.
appreciate the,
Enthusiasm.
is there a motion on this?
I would offer a motion, move to approve the business license renewals for Katina Stanwood, doing business as Black Moon Public House, and Acadia Village Resort Homeowners Association, DBA Acadia Village Resort.
I'll second that.
Second. Any further discussion? Now, all those in favor? Councilor White, unanimous. New business, Dice Hearts Service, DBA Dice Hearts Ellsworth Car Wash, 271 High Street, for a new city Class C license, victular and liquor on a state and a state off-premise beer and wine license. This being a new business license, we often like to invite, if there's a member from the business here, to address the council. Is there anyone here from the business? No? Okay. It is a public hearing, so I'll open the public hearing. Are there any comments from the public regarding this business license? It's not a public hearing. It's okay. You're part of the public. I will close the public hearing maybe, and entertain anything from the council. Councilor Shea.
I make a motion that we issue a license to Dice Arts and Dice Arts Car Wash for a new Class C license and off-state beer and wine license.
Excellent. Is there a second? Second, Counselor Smith. Any comments? Wow, Steve was ready to go. Any comments from the council on this license application? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous, Counselor White. Excellent. Agenda item number 11, council order number 122500, discussion and action on the request of the Branch Lake Steward to set the Branch Lake Boat and Aeroplane sticker fee at $0 for the calendar year 2026. City Manager Pierce.
I think we're actually going to bring up Mr. John Whedon for this one.
Excellent, thank
John?
you.
Hello, folks, and welcome, new members. I'm the Branch Lake Steward. I work for the Water Department in town, and as part of the protection for our water supply, the city passed 25 or so years ago, Chapter 55, and it outlines different measures we take to protect the water supply. One of them is we mandate a sticker for everyone's boat that goes on the lake. And that's an educational process. It helps people understand why they need a sticker, why they need an inspection before they boat on Branch Lake to protect it from invasive species. And as part of that, the city can charge a fee for that sticker. And we've stuck with $0 since inception because we want everyone, including IF&W and other state agencies, to be our partners with this, as well as every boater who wants to use Branch Lake coming from all over the world. And that is the reason that we've requested $0, because we want people to be partners in protecting the lake. And we think that people are genuinely happy about the concept and are happy to be our partners most of the time, and that's called success. Do you have any questions? I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions from the council for John?
I have a question.
You have a question?
I'm not sure, this is a rhetorical question. What is the potential revenue that communities like ours who do charge for stickers bring in?
Well, it depends on how you charge. We have set in our Chapter 55 that we can charge a fee for a sticker. Now, as a rule, we send out about either from 1,000 to 1,500 stickers on various boats throughout the year. So you can multiply that by as many dollars as you wish per sticker. Other places charge per inspections at a launch site. City of Belfast, for instance, they have their own launch site on the ocean, and they charge a substantial sum for every launch that's done by any boat. That visiting folks are charged more than local folks, etc. Those options are open to us. The difference is what we inspect is the state-of-the-art. We inspect at the state-of-the-art state launch on state property land, and we're their partners. They've been accommodating for us to allow us to inspect every boat without exception that is launched there. And we have an agreement with them, a license with them, to inspect whenever we are open. And we've agreed to certain open times throughout the year, starting in April and ending in September 30th every year.
Thank you.
Councilor Smith?
It's funny you asked for questions, so I didn't know it was appropriate to make a comment, but I had the same question, I think, early on in this process. And I have a kayak, I take it there, not often, but it's been once a year. And this conversation about, I think there are 2 points that address your question. One was that zero cost removes a barrier, that sometimes even $2 to $5 could be a barrier, but also the odds of showing up ready to kayak having $2 or $5 are a way to pay. We just don't want to create that kind of barrier. And the other thing, as we talked about it, is the cost to process those small fees would outweigh the actual revenue. So the odds of actually using it to generate the revenue, I'm assuming that's your thoughtful question, it just wouldn't be there. So the agreement, as he noted, with the state, and then also just not having either the convenience or the cash being a barrier to people being able to enjoy a beautiful lake. And I don't know if folks haven't been there, but it's great. The boat launch is next to the public beach, so you get to watch kids playing in the water and not be in charge of them as you paddle out or move out and beyond. And it gets a lot of use. I'm there generally, when I've gone there, there's been at least a dozen trucks and cars in the yard where people are out on the boats, and seeing people backing their trailers in is always an adventure as well. So it's a great asset, and I think it's the arrangement we've got, it makes sense to not be charging, but to have the sticker in the inspection to protect the lake. So thank you.
Any other questions or comments from council? Seeing none. I don't have any, just a comment that, thank you for the work. Branch Lake is important, not just for the recreational purposes, but obviously our drinking water, and it's well stewarded, and this is a part of that program. So thank you, John, for the work that you do there.
Thank you.
We do, seeing any questions, comments from the public on Branch Lake? Seeing none, how would the council like to proceed? We do have a suggested motion in the packet. Councilor Smith?
I'm just trying to get the wording of this right. Motion to advance the suggested motion? Or
Yeah, we can
Yeah.
do that. I think the motion is to approve the request of the Branch Lake Water Steward to set the Branch Lake Boat and Aeroplane sticker fee at $0 for the calendar year 2026, as moved by Councilor Smith. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion from the council on this? Seeing none, all those in favor? Councilor White, affirmative, unanimous. Thank you, John. Council Order 112501, discussion of memorial on city property. We have a memo from the city manager.
I know, Councilor Shea, I know this is your sponsored item. Did you want me to just proceed with the memo, or do you want to give any kind of opening comments on?
I don't mind giving an open comment. A number of residents have contacted me about a question of a monument that was placed at Knowlton Park, and it also corresponded with trees that were donated by this family. And they took quite an issue with the monument itself. And it was something that I wasn't aware that was already there. So I asked the city manager to kind of dive into it, to kind of get a little background and information. And because in my mind, parks, recreational areas, they should be governed by the Parks and Rec. And they're appointed and they're responsible to the city council. Okay? And the city manager did really more, did a great job of getting the information. The IT people dove into it and found the communications. And it wasn't one city manager previous, it was, turns out, 3 city managers previous. So here we have an individual that was hired, and in a brief summary of it, he kind of unilaterally said, yeah, go ahead. Because there's no ordinance or any rules that governs what goes on. And you could expand that to not just monuments, but trees. And there's nothing that says who's authorized to remove it. You see what I mean? To me, it's not a question whether it's the individual that's memorialized there or anything, but to me, and my experience with being on the Parks and Rec Committee in another municipality, if you build it, they will come. And that also includes those who have special interest. So you kind of have to look at the big test. Does this fit the overall generalized taste test, smell test. You see what I mean? And when you put monuments in places, and even so much as trees, there's set places that you put them, and certain things that you don't want to plant. I think Councilor White would agree to me, there's a lot of invasive tree species and plants that last thing we want to do is allow that to be put there just because somebody wants to donate it. You see what I mean? Maybe you might want to enlighten them, Mr. Pierce, on what you found out. Because it was, hopefully we didn't spend too much money and time on it, because to me, this is a distraction. And if we have rules in place, stuff like this may or may not happen. Okay? So, we don't need to have some special group come along and say, we want that statue taken down up on the Bridge Hill, because they find everything about the Civil War being offensive. It's, no, you see what I mean?
Yeah, I'd say I did look into this upon the citizen's complaint here and some counselor back and forth. There was and there is no ordinance or policy guiding the placements of memorials on city property. And in conversations with our attorney, the city manager has the authority to work with staff to place such memorials. They possess the administrative authority at the time to do such installation. They coordinated with staff. And the donor for this small granite stone on the tree selection, placement, and marker design was fully funded by a private citizen and implemented through normal staff processes. I think a counselor was notified. I personally would have brought this to city council for some sort of vote or guidance in the absence of a policy. I think a policy could be developed. I know Tabitha, you said that the Arbor Commission, I believe, really felt this might be more belonging with the Cemetery Commission, or maybe it belongs with the city council itself on if we're going to not just place a memorial, but also remove a memorial. At this time, I have no inclination to not just put memorials up, but also take them down of the city of Ellsworth. To me, that's a decision for the elected representatives of the city of Ellsworth. And I could see it be valuable to put together a pretty straightforward ordinance for the future placement of memorials in the city of Ellsworth. Happy to, if the council would like me to move forward on that, put together some language. We could have it come through the Cemetery Commission, or we could just have myself, do a quick review of some other cities and towns that have similar type ordinances, so that we have just a more defined process for how the elected officials approve and or remove memorials in the city. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Okay. Thank you, Manager Pierce. Any comments, questions from council members? Councilor White, I see your hand is raised virtually.
Yes, it is. I just want to speak from the Arbor Commission's perspective. We have brought this up at our last meeting, and it was the first time we really thought about what words should be used on memorials, and then we realized really quickly that that doesn't seem like that's in our purview. However, we would certainly be of any assistance to the Cemetery Commission that we can be, but where we find, we think our role is there is, of course, the approved species, approved locations, marker sizes, maybe even marker materials that go with trees, but as far as wording goes, we just did not feel comfortable taking that on. So again, I would extend any help that we can to the Cemetery Commission there, or to council itself, but however we decide to go forward with this.
Great. Thank you, Councilor White. Councilor Smith, do you have any thoughts on the Cemetery Commission's purview here, role?
I'm having a hard time seeing an alignment with the Cemetery Commission, since they are working specifically on the cemeteries, not on memorials outside of that. So I think what may be worthwhile is, Charlie, you had offered to develop some language and process, and if there's something, maybe run it by both Arbor Commission and Cemetery Commission just to see if we're seeing any issues with it. But without running it by the commission, that's my initial read.
Yeah, definitely happy to do so. I mean, my instinct is I've looked at a few other policies too. I could see the general policy being put together, but also that, for any addition or removal of a city memorial, that maybe it has to be sponsored by, kind of just like an agenda item here, it has to be sponsored by a city councilor. If a citizen would like to request, I can let people know that this request has been made. Maybe we have a form for request, and then if a councilor feels like this is an appropriate memorial, that it can be brought forward, whether a private donation or at city expense, and there's sort of a process, maybe some general guidelines for what we might consider appropriate memorials for the council to proceed with, or maybe something a little more broad, that it's really at the discretion of the council and the councilor authorizing it, and then maybe a little bit of guidance on just like city staff, that don't have the discretion to decide what memorials get put in and what get taken out, that is really the purview of the city council, just so that we have some sort of ordinance that ensures going forward, there's just a lot more public visibility into those processes, so.
What might you think about this being a matter to be handled by the Historic Preservation Committee? I mean, memorials that's what they're doing, they're preserving history.
Just lost a good chair there, though, so. I said, we just lost a good chair. I don't know if I trust that committee anymore. But yeah, that's a good point, yeah.
I actually do fully agree with Carol on that.
Yeah, more than the cemetery or the Arbor Commission, the historic preservation, that is kind of the purview, and to look forward and backward on kind of, I could see that maybe being their origination point, and then it can come forward to council if it meets certain threshold for discussion. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go.
Councilor Shea?
I agree with it about the historic, but I also think that where it is located, it's in the park, okay? And kind of to go with it, if we could get the Parks and Rec and the Arbor Commission and the historical, because it's not really, monument, yes, it's a different than what cemetery is, okay? This is a public, cemeteries are public that we own, but there's certain rules that each cemetery has, certain specific things. You see what I mean? But I would suggest, and I'm not opposed to making a motion, that in the interim, it's basically would be a moratorium on any more monuments being placed or installed until such an ordinance, and they all come before the city council. Because I don't want, it kind of puts the city manager and the deputy city manager in an awkward position. You see what I mean? Because there's a certain, like I said, the smell and taste test. We represent all the people, and you can't discriminate against all the people. You shouldn't discriminate either. But the other thing is, does it really have any relative historical value to the city? It's not I'm not going there on this discussion. I just wanted to start the process, to lay down rules on who can do what, when they can do it, who's going to allow, and what do we want that's in good moral order of the city, based upon what our constituents elected us to do.
Just on that real quick, then Councilor Smith, I think the idea of a moratorium makes place, but I think in essence, as I understand it right now, Chair or Manager Pierce is, if anyone has the authority at the present moment to issue it, would be the city manager, and city manager's telling us he's not going to do this until we have
Right.
something from the council. So I think in effect, we have a moratorium. I don't know if we need to vote on it or if we can vote on it. at this point, because we haven't noticed anything, but,
Well, you know, I'm looking for a solution to help our city manager out.
oh,
You see what I mean?
Oh, yeah, I
And
agree
Any other
completely.
future, because it's very possible, you know, I mean, I'm not looking for the here and now, I'm looking for the future. It's very possible that, you know, they got great potential, but nothing says, never say never. I mean, you might be sitting there going, oh, I'd never leave the city of Ellsworth, you guys are like gods to me. And, yeah, next month or February, we get a notice saying, tender my resignation, I'm going to here, you know? And who knows, she might follow me. You see
No,
what I mean?
it's a good point, Pat, and I don't know if we, you know, could, I mean, I think we can vote, I suppose, if we wanted to,
Have it all come before the city council.
oh, yeah, and I agree, and I think
And
that's what we're
and that's what
working
I'm
towards.
looking for. I want us to kind of work on this. But I think a better way to work at it is assign it to the boards or committees to help us with it, because we're addressing a lot of issues. You see what I mean? And we need to get the best feel about it. But in the meantime, any monuments that need to be put in, or any group of citizens come to us that they find it, they feel it should be renewed, they need to come to us and say why.
Did you say removed?
There's a possibility they could come say, we need this removed. We find the monument at Little Park, or whatever, you know? We got a lot of areas, you know, they might find problem with something that Merrill Park, which is basically a little narrow strip of land. You see what I mean?
I should know that I will never remove or add a
No.
memorial without proper council authorization. But to Councilor Shea, I think, you know, if you're okay with it, we can maybe add it to the workshop agenda
Look, we can do
in
that,
January,
too.
and then I can look to have this on the council meeting properly noticed, and then maybe there could be a moratorium, something of that
Just
note.
something, just directing, saying the city manager's staff, the administrative staff have to come before the council to approve or disapprove, or, you know, it helps you out with a tool. And then the other guidelines could be refined further down the road, having between the various committees, like historical, Parks and Rec, maybe the Arbor in there, because we don't want invasive plants here. You see what I mean?
No, I think that's helpful.
Because it
Pat.
gets pretty expensive to remove some of those invasive plants. I'm just looking
Don't
out.
worry. We would never allow invasive plants to be planted in the city of the Arbor Commission.
I trust you on that, I really do. I wouldn't allow it either, because I've had to remove some of this stuff, but, you know, I mean, it's, like I said, you build it, they will come, and that also applies that you have to have certain things in place.
Thank you, Councilor Shea. Councilor Smith was next.
I think, Pat, in listening, what I see is a need for, in the work of developing it, a statement of purpose, like kind of that touchstone. Why is it that we're having a memorial? Does this proposal meet with it? So I think just broadly, the statement of purpose for, you know, memorials are to memorialize some piece of history or something that we can use to frame consideration for
Wow.
future ones, that seems like an idea to address the issue you were raising.
Councilor Martineau?
I'd just like to go on the record, I have to disagree with you formally that this particular monument has nothing or little relevance to Ellsworth. This is it was a very tragic event. It has to do with the whole nation. So I think that it's a little tone deaf. Perhaps a little tone deaf to not bring that into the equation.
Councilor Shea?
I probably should have chose my words a little bit better. It's not my place to make the judgment on it. You see, I mean, to me, it's this board, the committee, our opinions, if we can agree to disagree on things. But the point also comes about, you know, my dog passed away. I've had her forever. I used to take her for walks around here.
Are you comparing George Floyd to
No,
your dog?
No, I'm not mentioning. dropping-
Counselor Martineau, just if you
Excuse
could,
me.
please,
Sorry.
thank you.
No, I'm not, I don't want to go there. I'm just saying that I can see a potential to all kinds of things going on. And it's not my place to pick that or anything. I'm just saying I found a problem. We need to work on it. I don't think it's a problem. I'm not going to say I think it's a problem. I see that the overall picture that you got to have the right taste for everybody.
So I think what I'm hearing is the council, sounds like we're in agreement that we want to see some process moving forward for the placement of monuments on city property that involves some form of consultation with the relevant city committees that may have subject matter expertise or perspective on this, and that the city manager will prepare a proposed ordinance or policies to that effect and bring it back to the council for consideration.
Yep.
Any further questions, comments from the council on that specific issue? Councilor Halloran?
I'd just like to hear process that you learned. When this was installed, what had the people done? And how would it be different going forward? I realize being different going forward is up for grabs, but what happened in this case? In other words, could you tell us the organization came forward and asked for permission and did it, and how would this council see it being done different? I guess I'd just like to learn that.
Yeah, in general, the request was brought forward by a private citizen, and it was brought forward, I believe there was some discussion with some city staff and the citizen, and then a little bit of back and forth with the councilor, but then the city manager at the time directed his assistant to work with them on placing a small memorial at the site, and it kind of moved forward from that period of time. And again, looking back, I could see a more formalized process in that. Again, if I was city manager at the time, I would have brought it to a committee or a council meeting and said, hey, we had this request. What do you think? I think with the Pride sidewalk that was painted outside, that was a voted on kind of official city council piece. So like, how do we formalize those types of requests? It seems to be a little bit more, according to what administration's here, and I could see there being, the need to define the process a little bit. Other cities and towns have these types of ordinances, so that, this isn't the case again, where it's like, hey, how did this happen? It was kind of the staff, and again, they had the authority at the time, the city manager and the city staff, who wasn't required to come to council. But I could see a better process in place for more council involvement, or not. Or maybe with the historic commission, we kind of talk there, and that can kind of be with them. I think it's good to have a policy and procedure, and that way, it's a little more transparent, and we move forward.
So it's fair to say the people did all they could do to get permission.
Yeah.
But what I'm hearing is there really wasn't a correct procedure to go forward with it, and there were some decisions made, and what I'm hearing here is maybe that needs to be tuned up a little. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that they had in talking to legal counsel, what had the memorial stone was, at the time, all proper procedures were followed. Could there be better procedures? Absolutely. I think in all things in city council and in city government, we're always trying to improve policies and procedures. We brought a lot forward. We're bringing some forward tonight, some digital modernization and some other pieces. I think this is one of those. A lot of other cities and towns have a more formal process for this, but that doesn't also mean, I think to your point, Steve, that this was, not authorized in any way by the city before. I talked to our legal counsel on this, and in absence of an ordinance, it is right and proper for the city staff to work with private citizens for a memorial of this type.
Sounds like the people did all they could do.
At the time.
Yeah, at the time.
Yep.
Well, I think there's no vote here, so I think we've got a path forward on this issue, and thank you, Manager Pierce, for tackling that. With that, moving on to council agenda item number 13, council order number 122502, public hearing and action on proposed amendments to Ellsworth City Ordinance and Codes, Chapter 10, Ordinance for the Maintenance, Administration, and Disposition of Tax-Acquired Properties. I see our city clerk here,
Well, actually,
and our tax
I'm
collector.
the tax collector at the moment, yep. Sue McLean, for those that don't know me, but I'm sure by now everybody does. So, as we all know, the state of Maine changed the laws when it comes to selling tax-acquired property. And our ordinance didn't keep up with that. And so I'm here today to ask approval to update the ordinance. You should have a copy in your packet of the changes. You should have a red-lined copy, so you can see what it was and what they're changing it to. And as you'll notice, there are a lot of changes, because we didn't have a lot of guidelines before, and the state now is very specific on how things are to be done. So that's the gist of it. Actually, I'm just asking for approval to update the ordinance as it is written in the draft. And I've gone over it, and I don't see an issue with anything in there.
Okay, thank you. Questions for Sue from the council regarding the proposed ordinance change before we open the public hearing? Councilor Halloran.
Who wrote the proposal?
Redmond,
The
the
attorney?
lawyers.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it wasn't me, Steve.
No, and
I'm
in
not that smart.
looking, maybe you can't answer this, maybe the attorney can or something, but I was struggling when I read through it, and maybe it's there. Does, in your opinion, this give us some flexibility to work with people that are in need or close to losing their property? I couldn't quite nail that down.
Yeah, it does. It's not a case of, I have the ability to work with people before it goes to foreclosure. I can come here and ask to have it waived. I can work with people to set up payment plans, that sort of thing. I can avoid it from going to foreclosure. Once it goes to foreclosure, then my hands are kind of tied, except for if somebody's trying really hard to still pay their bills even afterwards, we have the right to agree to sell it back to them without having to go through the realtor, as the ordinance is saying. And if we do sell it back to them, to the prior owner, we don't have to follow all these other laws that they've put into place. We can sell it back to them for just what they owe, or just what is owed, which is what we have been doing up until now anyway.
So, you're confident that this doesn't lose your ability to help somebody in need?
Absolutely, I am.
What about, Charlie, did you,
Yep.
you see that as well?
Yep, this really puts us in line with the state
Yes.
guidance here. And,
I couldn't read that in here, but
Right.
maybe I was too far ahead of the.
Yeah, well, there is a part that says that it is up to the council whether we are going to sell the property or sell it back to the prior owner or keep it. And if we decide to sell it back to the prior owner, we can work with them.
Some of this
to
would
get
get
it
set
paid.
aside in that process? Is that fair?
Yeah, and if I may, so this looks good to me, and I've been dealing with this law for a lot of my other municipal clients. And to your point, Steve, and to Sue's point, before foreclosure actually had the automatic foreclosure, there's the lien that's filed, and then there's 18 months for the property owner to work with the city before automatic foreclosure takes place. And as Sue has described, you know, and as we've seen in our last meeting, right, if she identifies properties that can be worked with, she has the flexibility to come to us to postpone foreclosure. And then this is really codifying at the moment of foreclosure, making sure we satisfy the state's statute that's based off the Supreme Court decision from a few years ago. And that is very clear, that city has the authority to either sell it back to the previous owner at cost, or set it out to, you know, or keep it. And then if that's the case, if we keep it, we'd have to do a fair market value
Yes.
assessment
Yeah.
and pay that back to the former property owner. Or if we sell it, any net proceeds the city would receive automatically go back to the previous owner. So I view this as buttoning that all up and giving us pretty clear path going forward.
Thank you. That was, I didn't catch the fact that
And as you can imagine, Steve, yeah, we
I
want to make
didn't
sure
catch the
anything we
fact
sell is going to
double-checked
be.
you had flexibility before
Yeah.
we hit this point. Okay.
Yes, yep.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from counselors? Seeing none, this is a public hearing, so I'm going to open the public hearing. If anyone from the public has comments on this matter, please approach the dais. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. How would the council like to proceed?
Can I just ask a question? Sorry.
You
sorry.
may.
I forgot you were there.
Oh, there you are.
Sorry, Tab, and you even have your virtual hand up. I'm sorry I missed that.
Sue, I was just wondering, how much extra, do you see this adding a lot of work
Yes.
load to your plate?
Oh, yes. I do,
Okay.
I do. There is a lot more, I mean, it's not necessarily bad things that they've added. It really clarifies and makes it a lot easier for me to know exactly what I need to do and when I need to do it. But there are a lot more notices that will need to go out. We will have to reach out. If we get stuff back, we have to bend over backwards to try and find the people. And then not, if we have a hard time finding them, there's other things that we have to do. It really, there is a lot more work to it than what I've ever had to do. That, absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions, comments from council? Seeing none, would anyone like to propose a motion? Councilor Smith?
Move to approve the request of the tax collector to revise the Chapter 10 Maintenance, Administration, and Disposal of Tax Acquired Property Ordinance Revision as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Councilor O'Halloran.
Two.
All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, Sue. Stay right there, though.
You're welcome.
Agenda item 14, council order number 122503, discussion and potential action on selling city-owned properties by public auction. Sponsored by Councilors O'Halloran and Shea.
Did they want to talk first? So I am still Sue McLean. I am still the tax collector. And based on the prior item that we just went over, we cannot put these properties out to auction. We can't. There is an option to do that, but only after we have jumped through many hoops. So it's not completely off the table, but initially, we have to identify what we want to sell, and we have to list it with a Realtor, and we have to give it a year to sell. And then, if it doesn't, then we can consider either a sealed bid or an auction.
Okay. Councilor Halloran, question?
I had asked this to be put on probably 2 months prior to tonight. I usually am a couple of months ahead. And the word auction was an error in my view. I really don't care how
Sure.
we sell
Okay.
properties. What I care about is that we make some decisions, and we don't just sit on the properties, and some of this addresses that
Yep.
we just voted on.
Yeah.
But when this was asked of me, none of this was on the table.
Right.
And my push is to put these back into population, and let's not just sit still with them. And I think in the 4 years I've been here, it's just been a sleepy process. And whether it's public auction, realtor, sealed bid, whatever you choose, I think if we can't make out a deal with the people that have lost the property, then I don't care how you sell it. I'd just
Right.
like to see it go back out into taxable rolls for the city.
Yep. Well, I have a suggestion. And what I'm requesting is that we get approval to put out an RFP and to find out which realtors want to do this, because out in tax collector land, I'm hearing that there are realtors that don't want to deal with that. So let's see who wants to do this. And while that's all stewing and churning, I would like to be able to meet, I don't know with who, but meet with people and discuss individual properties. Because each one is unique. Each one has its own issue. Some of them people are living in still, some of them, it's not the owners that are living in it, others are in extreme poor condition. I mean, there's just so many different things that I think it's easy to say, I just want to sell, put it on the market. There may be things we need to do before we can put it on the market, and I'd like to identify that. And by going down through each individual property, I think it will give everybody a better, clearer view of which properties we want to start with, maybe, and work our way through the list. I mean, there's not a huge amount, but there are some big problems with some of them. So, and even finding prior owners, which is not, doesn't have anything to do with putting it up for sale at this point, but there's just, every property has a little quirk, so.
Councilor Shea?
Like, there's one on Bangor Road that it needs to be cleaned up. I mean, what applies to us is the same thing as if a regular person was trying to sell a parcel of property. So you don't really want to sell it with possible issues. You see what I mean? You know, so, and this piece of property hasn't been cleaned up. And we need to do it the most cost-effective way so that it will sell, and whoever's getting it doesn't have to worry about it.
Councilor Smith?
It sounds like, Sue, is that what you were referencing about there are properties with difficult situations?
Yeah, they're all a little different. That is one of them. Yeah, and it's been easy to just to say, well, we need to clean these up and put them up for sale. Well, I don't feel as though I have the ability to send out Public Works to this house and tell them to, pick up the trash or whatever. That is not what I want to do. I want to be able to go down through, see which ones need attention, And then let's work on seeing what we can do to get that attention. But yes, that is a case.
And that, so the question I had and towards Councilor O'Halloran's question about let's get this moving and move fast. I'm looking at the key rules, and I agree with that, within the bounds of what we're focused on. Key rules for listing a real estate agent. It looks like, to reflect new state law, we cannot sell for a full year.
I disagree.
Yeah, that's an ongoing.
This is why I'm bringing it up. is
Well,
that seems odd.
I talked to MMA Legal just the other day.
Yeah.
And I do have an email out to our lawyer, but I hadn't heard back in time for this. But their thought was, one of the things they said was, I happened to pinpoint an issue that has no clarity, really. However, their feeling on it is that it's unrealistic to expect somebody to make an offer and wait 12 months.
And it's unrealistic for this may be why realtors aren't interested.
Yes,
is it's
but
dead
what
for
she,
10
what,
months.
what the lawyer told me, again, this is MMA Legal,
Yeah.
said it's not been tested in court. And until it is, her suggestion is to just assume that we can sell it. I mean, we don't have to wait 12 months. And she doesn't think it would, she doesn't see it as being, that we have to wait that long. She's, one place it kind of says that, and then in another place, it says within 12 months. So how can you sell within but have to wait?
I'm gonna call myself. So I've dealt with this issue in my work, and I found realtors in other communities that are doing this work, and I think some of the issues you raised about, they might be able to help the city kind of identify, okay, I think we could get these sold sooner than others, and then
Right.
for, as far as cleaning up properties, they might have some good ideas to help the city too.
Right.
Maybe we kind of like categorize lowest hanging fruit, then some of the more problem children, and we kind of work our way through that. That might be a good way to go. But to this year issue, yeah, there's no, we'd lose that, we wouldn't be able to sell anything.
Right.
Right, so I think the way I've been interpreting it and telling people to act is, or advising people to act is, if you get if you put it out and someone puts a bid on it, then you sell it. And it's only if you can't find a legitimate buyer for a year at that year point, then we don't have to go through the realtor anymore. We could do something like an auction or
Exactly.
things of that nature.
Right, and that's what MMA Legal was implying. It doesn't say that, it doesn't spell that out, which is why they were a little uncomfortable with it, but that's what she said they interpret it as.
It's the only thing that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's
Well,
good.
that makes no sense the way that's
Yeah, so
set up. And this is a fairly new law, so nobody's tested it yet.
Right, and, that portion of it, it's not been tested.
I wouldn't be surprised if maybe there's an amendment to the statute again that clarifies.
Yeah, to clarify,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's that. I think Councilor Halloran has his hand up first.
So I don't have any issue with setting on the property for 12 months to give the previous owners chance to do something. I don't think we need to race into selling the property once it's foreclosed upon. I don't have a problem waiting the year to give everybody time, and we don't have to test this rule and so on. But there are properties that have been in ownership for a long time that I think we need to start at the bottom and work backwards on these properties. And I'm not hard and fast on foreclosing and selling. What I'm getting at is there seems to be a growing list that we haven't acted on. And
Right.
we work backwards, and, if the city said, well, let's hold on to them for 2 years before we make a decision, I'm not against any of that. I'm just against the doing nothing.
right? But with the new state law, it says that, it doesn't give you a time, but it says that you need to list it basically within a reasonable amount of time. So that, again, that's up to interpretation as well. And some of the properties that foreclose, basically, we have no idea how to find the owners. That's an ongoing problem. And we can set on it for a year, but we're still going to get all our mail back. So I guess that's something, again, that we need to address.
We have a police department with a detective department that I would think might be able to help that situation.
Counselor Morgan?
I'm curious if this year's provision, whether it's actually a year or not actually a year, is that in conjunction with a post-sale right of reclaim, or is there no post right?
No, that's a different, that's if,
So we have that to deal with too, though?
well, I guess I'm not sure what you're asking. I was
I can-
thinking one thing.
I think it's, so, in the foreclosure process, there's, once the property taxes are due and they're late, there's a lien that's filed, and then they have 18 months to pay it. If they don't pay within 18 months, the law automatically forecloses. But there's a right to redemption in that component of it for the previous property owner. And then, once it's finally foreclosed upon, that's kind of a separate section. And I think what we all probably, I don't want to speak for everyone, but I think what we can do is have a policy, so even after, that foreclosure, reaching out to the previous owner and saying, hey, we're gonna give you the opportunity to buy this back, give them a certain amount of time that's reasonable. And then if they decide to buy it back, great, keeps the family and, the folks
Right.
in Ellsworth. And if they don't, then we proceed to the, realtor, sell it through the normal
Right.
process.
Okay, no, yeah, I understand
And-
that.
Yeah,
What I was referring to is in some municipalities, even beyond that, once it's sold, they don't get a clear title.
Well, so there's a new way to, so the law, so I've been dealing a lot with this.
Thank you.
Yeah, the law, so there's two ways you can clear title. One, you can get a release from the previous owner, or two, under the new law, if the foreclosed property is sold, and then any net proceeds, once those are returned to the previous property owner, the city files a notice with the registry saying this was sold and the net proceeds have been returned, and that by statute automatically clears the title.
Okay, all right. I
Yeah,
see.
so that's
Yeah.
how that works now.
And also, just, I don't know, just for those that aren't familiar with it, but after a foreclosure, we automatically send out a redemption letter to everybody, giving them the details and offering to sell it back to them for what is owed. So we do offer that out, again, provided it doesn't come back in the mail, but we do try.
Can I ask another question? Mr. I'm just curious, the ones that you're talking about that have been sitting around, are they the ones that are in really, really bad shape?
Well, the particular one that he was talking about has been in it's been in the courts for a while. So for quite a while, we couldn't do anything. There was a question of ownership. It is not in the courts anymore. The person is no longer claiming ownership and has walked away, I guess. So that does clear it up as far as that goes. But when it finally got released from the courts, I wasn't in a position to work on any of that or any of the others, actually, so. But I'm back.
One more comment.
I think
I'm sorry.
Counselor Smith.
Sorry, go ahead.
This is just a clarifying question. Because this law is so new, is there any precedent to do what happens when you make good, thorough, good faith efforts to find the prior owner, but you just can't?
Yes, there is. Within the law, we have to post it in the newspaper for 3 weeks in a row, and then that clears us of any liability on it.
Perfect, thank you.
Counselor Mondo?
Oh, yes, I was just going to say, I mean, with our other issues that we're supposed to be dealing with, that we are going to try to deal with, such affordable housing, et cetera, does selling these properties like, that are in very bad shape, is that a carrying call to developers who have cash to come in and scoop them up, or?
I don't know, because the last one, somebody came in, we thought was gonna end up developing it and hasn't done anything to it, and it's, what, 2 years now, the Cars property, so I don't know the answer to that.
Counselor Halloran?
I just want to go on record as saying that I don't think the city of Ellsworth needs to stage properties for maximum return. I don't think that's our business. If we've done everything we can and we can't reunite the previous owner with the property, I have no interest in cleaning something up and making it more marketable. Market it as it is and return the proceeds, if there is any, to the rightful people. I don't think we need to be in the marketing business. And again, I don't think this is, I think this has turned into a little bigger issue than I intended. My intention was, hey, if there's a half a dozen properties laying around that we could be marketing and nobody wants to claim and get it back on the tax rolls, that's really my push. But staging it like a realtor would want you to stage it, I don't think that's our business. I think our business is to just turn that into taxable property and move on.
I think unfortunately, the only properties that are like that, that we can just put up for sale without having to do anything to, are islands that nobody is claiming that the city is shown as the owners.
We do have a couple city properties that are owned outright beyond the islands. But I also think, to your
Yeah.
point, Steve, I think the point here is let's follow the new process that's in the law. Let's get a real estate agent engaged to see, like to your point, we're not going to take pictures and try to, like, whatever the real estate person thinks. The key is kind of speed here, but also to your point, we're in a due process so that, if anybody has a claim to this, that they can go there. We'll see what comes back. And then, to your point, Steve, like, and that was in that, we had the ability to accept or reject, even at the highest bid comes in, and we know this, I think, personal experience in this council now. If a much higher bid and the family wants to, just figure out the back taxes, we can figure out, we can add a new ordinance, we can move forward. We're trying to do what's morally right, not trying to make a ton of money as a city. But also there's a second piece, which, then that process goes out. Patrick, maybe your point, a lot of the things ensue, they are smaller, they're not the most marketable, saleable, then maybe there's a larger auction of kind of this land, and it's kind of also to get it back on the tax rolls, right? The city holding on to these parcels is not their highest and best use. They've essentially all become untaxable, so let's get a fair and equitable process moving forward, clear the decks, kind of another good governance thing. This is, and then moving forward, we'll just have a great process, a great tax collector / city clerk that knows this, and they kind of come in and get processed fairly and equitably moving forward. So that's what I would like to see.
Ditto. Counselor Shay?
I agree. The only thing is, I just don't want to be caught in that real estate deal that we sell something and we end up with the liability of it.
No, yeah, no,
You
I
know.
think the nice thing about this new law is that it
Yeah,
actually
I like the
takes
new
it
law.
off. Yeah,
And it spells things out the way we have to do things.
yeah, I agree.
And I like our ordinance too.
Yeah, I think it looks good. So we do have a proposed motion from the tax collector regarding preparing RFP. Would any counselors like to make a motion in that regard?
I can, I
Sarah
just
Smith?
try and get the wording right.
Right here.
All right, so, I I move to approve the request to prepare and issue the request for proposals to solicit proposals for independent licensed real estate brokers in order to select and broker to list and acquire properties on behalf of the city in full compliance of the Orients. The law. I will be able to say that word one day.
No, you got it. It's okay.
No, good. Works for me. And do we have a second?
Second.
Smith, all right.
Oh, beat me to it. Cool.
Any further discussion from counselors? Seeing none, all those in favor? Counselor White is in the affirmative, it's unanimous. Excellent, thank you, Sue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes,
That was clearly a lot of work.
yes,
So thank you.
A lot of work.
yeah. well worth
Thank you
it.
for doing it.
Yes, thank you. Number 16, no, 15. Council Order Number 122504, discussion and potential action on digital modernization systems for grants, management, procurement, contracts, water distribution, parks and recreation, and public works systems.
Yeah, and I should note a quick edit here. It's not the public works system. That was just a mistake on my part. I do think that our public works system needs a digital asset management system as well. But as we're hearing later tonight about a backfill in a position, we got to be a little more stabilized there, I think, before we embark on that digital modernization effort. So, except for the highway public works piece, we spent about this past 6 months looking at some digital solutions to some areas of government which are still predominantly paper-based systems that include a lot of risk and a lot of potential cost waste and lost opportunities that I think it's going to bring Ellsworth into the 21st century. It's in some ways a little sad. It took 25 years to get us here on these pieces, but this is sort of the blocking and tackling of city governments, especially in organizations, any that have high turnover rates. So I think the year before I arrived here is about a 20% turnover rate. My first year is about 15%, hoping to get that down to about 10%. But there's also a natural amount of churn in any organization, and we're not seeing municipal employees staying for 20, 30 years in a lot of these positions. And that creates a lot of systemic risk when somebody, that goes from a paper-based system may leave the organization, and that institutional knowledge kind of leaves with them. I think that in the analysis you kind of saw with former Chair Beal and Councilor Moat, they were longtime civil servants who have been here for decades. And we have a lot of those great folks around, but we want to make sure that in each piece of the organization that we have a digital workflow and management solution to really make sure that the city can stay modern and updated. I think a lot of the kind of major pieces are kind of in the enterprise asset management. I know there's a couple great digital workshops that are available on the website and that we've held on this digital modernization effort. We get into great detail on kind of some of the specifics here. One of the big pieces is enterprise asset management for parks and recreation in our water department in the near term, probably in our highway department later on as well. As I noted during that webinar, we've had water digs where they come from a paper map system. They dig a hole to repair water, and they think it's a 3-inch line or a 6-inch line, and it's vice versa. And they fill back in the hole, come back with the right equipment the next day. That happens, on more than a few occasions in the city, and we need a system that's not just a paper map that's governing those types of pieces, but an actual digital, and you can see this in the webinar, the digitization of every single water line we have. We're doing a $20 million replacement of our water treatment plant, but that's for the plant itself. That'll be a very modern digital system, but if we don't have all of the pipes and all those pieces put together, and then those things can also help our firefighters and knowing what the pressures of those lines are when they go out there. If they notice that a fire hydrant isn't working, not just putting the O-ring on there to notify that or emailing around, that we actually have a system that you can go in there, tag that as a hydrant that needs replaced. It puts it into the workflows. If it doesn't get repaired in a certain amount of time, it can get escalated to the city manager. Those types of kind of risks to the water systems that are currently there that we really need to. The wastewater is already on a system like that, so this would bring the water department in there. Then there's procurement and contract management. This is a huge one we talked about this morning, I think, at the Finance Committee meeting on, the great benefit of having a digital budgeting system and how we can actually, now that we have a couple years in there, we can analyze trends and we actually have prior year actuals and the amazing progress we've went into that system. Procurement and contracts is the next big thing. Beyond staff, personnel management, one of our biggest expenses is the contracts that we hold. And, and in some ways, government is a lot of times a pass-through entity towards private contractors doing specific work. So I want to get a lot more transparent and get more, a lot of times we only get one bid or two bids. How can we have a system that's digital, that puts it out quicker, that we can get longer lead times for people to bid on it, and then make it extremely transparent? It's very difficult for me right now. If you said, I want every single procurement that's happened over the last 5 years, that would be an enormous project. Something like this is implemented moving forward. A future city council can ask that, and it would take, 10 minutes. We could give you guys the login information for that. You could see every procurement that went through, every contract that's in the books, and there's just, especially in the procurement and contracting, there's just steps each way of the process so that you can ensure transparency and the city's getting the best dollar for those pieces. Same thing for grants management. This also has an enormous potential to help have the city bring in more funding. This isn't just managing the grants that we currently have and tracking them to make sure that they have been appropriately accounted for. We've had one issue where we almost lost a $1 million grant because the organization that we received the new grant from said, don't have your last 4 years of accounting on the previous grant, and until you do the accounting on that, we can't release the funds. Fortunately, they were amenable to that, but these are the types of risks in the system when you have paper-based, human-based systems that are really just too complex. I think there was a time when the city of Ellsworth was a bit smaller and wasn't dealing with the volume of contracts and procurements and grants management, but these are really the big pieces for digital monetization that I feel are essential to the city to move forward on. I kind of put in the last year, the major policy initiatives that we've moved forward on have been ordinance reform to make our ordinances business-friendly as possible. We're about to bear the fruits of that effort that's been going on over the last 6 months. The TIF district reimagining that can really help redesign our tax increment financing districts for the future to help with economic development and growth. That's going to pay huge dividends soon. Same thing with our capital improvement planning process, 1, 5, and 10-year plans. That's this last year. Of the next 3 or 4 months, all of that work is going to kind of come to fruition to help modernize the city. This next piece of the digital modernization, I really feel like the next year and a half is kind of going to move us into this century. So I'm excited about it. I know it's going to be a lot of work for our teams, but I think they're excited about it too. It's difficult when you manage these large projects and systems and you don't have this type of software solutions to help you in these projects. So with that, I'm happy to take some questions.
Great, thank you. Any questions from councilors for Manager Pierce about the digital modernization proposal?
I just have one,
Sure,
just
Martin.
I'm curious. So would this proposal be looking at multiple calls for proposals from different software and hardware integration people, or is there somebody that does all of this?
Somebody does, this is all within OpenGov's platforms. That was part of the last 6 months. We analyzed a lot of potential solutions here. One of the reasons that we kind of settled on OpenGov was they offer all of these pieces. And, there could be a few more. The Public Works, the Highway Department's one. Facilities Asset Management is another big one. And then they have a capital planning kind of module as well, that once we do that capital improvement planning project, we can really have all the data we need to look at all these pieces. They can also do crosswalks to our current Cassell financing solution. That's a lot of the professional services here, is they're going to have to connect all of these things. So when we get a grant, you see how much it's actually spent down on. And there were a few other contenders that were that we looked at, but this was, and actually there was a fair amount of other ones. I won't name them all here. But this was the one. There was a couple that I really liked in contract procurement and grants, and those three together. There was another one that I liked that was actually, a lot more expensive. And this one really felt like the best modern solution. Also, the Verisoft contract here it's like the Sourcewell joint government contracting solution. One of the reasons I'm bringing it now and why I've been leading up to this is to kind of lock in these 2025 prices on that Sourcewell contract before next year they go to some new pricing. So, I guess that pricing could be down, but usually these things go up. And these are the pieces that I think, especially in like the contracts, grants, procurement, those we'll be able to utilize very, very quickly. And every week we don't have that system is another week
Yeah.
that we lose that data. Parks and Rec, a new department's being built. I know Roddy can maybe talk. He's been in these conversations. Our fire department's been in these conversations on how their Esri maps can match into the, because these are going to be like GIS, digitization. It's a huge project, but how their stuff can kind of, really give some more real-time data to the firefighters as they go out there to see what our systems and our pressures and our lines are. And especially with Parks and Rec, as they're building this department, they're going to be able to look at all of our parks. And for Tabitha and the Arbor Commission, they've got that great tree project, and I know they did all the public right-of-way analysis on, in those Excel-based forms. Now we can take that work, bring all those right-of-ways into this digital system and map out the next decade of tree plantings.
Does something this big run from the cloud, or is it run?
It's all AWS cloud services, and actually Marina, who attended one of the webinars,
Yeah.
asked about some of the data protections and.
Yeah, that's a huge deal.
Yeah. So, and I know our IT team likes the fact that they are, AWS cloud-based and can kind of, this isn't going to be an enormous lift. They will be involved, obviously, but a lot of the professional services and the integrations with our teams aren't going to be so reliant on IT and having to build new infrastructure here. So that's one of the nice things about moving forward with this solution.
Great.
Okay, good.
I think I see Counselor White's digital and literal hand up.
Hi, okay, Charlie, I have a question for you. Did you say that you misspoke with the highway being included in this?
Correct. They're not in this one. I do want to move forward with highway at some point, but we're just not, we're talking about a backfill, I think, later on today. I think I'd like to get the teams a little more settled. They're sort of the next solution. I'd say maybe June-ish to come back.
Because of that, does that change the motion here? Because you do have that this total amount is going to be split up, and it includes the highway department as one of the professional service accounts we're drawing from.
Yeah, I would just pull that first bullet on that account to be pulled from. It's not in the details. So if you look in the Verisoft agreement and what totals.
Yeah, I noticed that.
What totals the 147, 687, 18 is the professional services in year one, plus all the licensing and contracting, but that doesn't include a public works solution. That would be a separate piece, and that's around 65 moving forward is the licensing fees. Also, just to note, for all of those solutions, it's 65. This is one of those things for a lot of our departments. Digital licensing fees are, that's par for the course. Our Cassell system is about 40,000. I think it was more upon the initial implementation. Trio, which our front office uses, is about 15,000 a year. Debt Book, which our finance department uses, 7,500. Vision for our assessing software, that's 10,000 a year. The police department is looking at their Power DMS, and some of their other pieces are about 40,000 a year in digital licensing solutions. I think the fire department's about 20, 30,000 in digital kind of pieces. So this is kind of one of those things of a cost for a lot of these big systems to have there, but very helpful in the long run to make sure. And also will give the city enormous visibility into these pieces. Grants management, I think, could be actually a huge cost saver, because I know with Danielle and our teams that looked at this, our urban planner, she comes from a grants background, and this is one of her pieces that she's going to be managing the implementation on this. And they have AI solutions that can look at grants all across the city. We put our capital improvement planning in there. We can, crosswalk that to the grants management system and show me all the grants that could match a lot of this capital improvement planning. We just saw that on a grant we missed by a couple weeks for window replacements in this historic building. A system like this, we might be a little better, capable to do that type of thing.
Well, we could old school it and go back to papyrus.
Well, we could go back to papyrus. Yeah, there's a great SNL skit
What
on
about
that.
cuneiform?
Cuneiform. Oh, wow.
Counselor Helen?
My, my question is this. This is going to be part of this well source is included in this?
Source well, yeah.
Source well.
That's through its,
And does, in your opinion, does that cloud the bidding process? Is that not as transparent with that?
no, that's the cheapest. So, for example, like the Ventrac we did through Sourcewell, and this is in our procurement policy, is that it allows for sole sourcing as long as it's through like a competitive, multi-government competitive bidding process. So every year, Sourcewell, if you are between the $10 and $40 million, I think is the range for like this type of contract as a government service provider, Sourcewell does a government contract with them to get best price. So they kind of do the work that we wouldn't be able to do on an individual basis. So you're getting, any organization of our size across the country, this is best price for that. That's in order to be on Sourcewell, you have to go through all these hoops to make sure you're in that area. We actually, on the Ventrac, a vendor reached out that, that was the best price. That was actually below MSRP. For that sidewalk plow piece. I think sometimes, I know you've pointed this out, Steve, there's some local contractors and vendors that for that Ventrac, might be reasonable to pay a little more because the local piece, it's not necessarily an ordinance. So I actually think I have some amenability there. If you can get pretty close to price and stay local, but something like this, there is no Ellsworth digital solution that makes this level thing. So, because this is like the right tool for the right job, and then we're procuring it through the organization that gets the best price. So that's, there was a lot. We looked at a lot. It was a lot of research. I know, thank you to all the staff and that have been on a lot of these with me, but it's going to be a big effort ahead, but this is going to be a great solution. And as we mentioned at Finance, Steve, it's not just the procuring these systems, it's the implementing. This is, today's like the first step. And I think I mentioned it in the memo, there'll be a lot of future updates from me on where we're at here. And, I could see the scenario too, where we really live as a council in more of these systems and how our procurement's going. I'm gonna be able to bring new data for you to say like, hey, this is the type of thing we procure in this type, and we're not getting a good cost here, or we are getting a good cost. And I think to your point, Steve, too, on the transparency piece, like that's where we're gonna take off. Is I really want to provide the public and the council, these are all the procurements, this is how we do them, make it really easy for staff. Right now, we're posted on the website, we try to send it around. This stuff will automate all of that, and we can be wildly more transparent, wildly faster with how we procure, hopefully get more bids out there for people to go by, because we'll be able to post it on these different sites. And then the contracting piece too. You finish the procurement, you can still do the, what's this little toggle for a closed bid, or what do you call the, before you do the bid opening, there's like a name for that,
Cold opening?
no, the bid opening, or it's like a closed, so you can't see it, like nobody can see anything, not even me in the system. So everybody's putting stuff in there, and then. Sealed bid.
Yeah.
So you have the sealed bid process, you pull the toggle over, and then, you can get it at the exact same time I get it, Steve. It'll just automatically send you the email, here's what came in. If the counselors want to look at it before we go in there, it'll all be in there as part of the process. Then when we choose the bid, based on that, and you can, the paper trail, the audit trail is a lot clearer when you just have all of these for exactly how it went through. Then you go into contracting, and then all of the, the bells and whistles that we need to make sure our contracts. And then when we have all these contracts in a system, citywide, we'll be able to say, hey, our Casella contract for trash management is about to be up. We need to figure out a way, like that's a huge contract. Last time around, that was the only bidder. It was an enormous price increase, and when you're putting out fires month to month in council meetings, and then now we can be like, hey, that's a huge bid. Like, how can we look to make sure that we get a second bidder on that? Or should we look to other options to insource that? It'll give us that kind of real-time data. Or what contract have we had for 4 years, and we're only, we just keep saying yes, maybe we should put that one back out to bid. Which contracts are increasing in price, which ones are, pretty stable. We'll have that kind of real data to look at this enormous spend in city government. I could go on and on about the asset management side of things too, on managing labor and a lot of these conversations with OpenGov, because this is a best-in-class solution, like, oh, this is actually teaching our teams how to do best-in-class, asset management. I could see eventually, like, their facility stuff, every single light bulb, when it needs to be replaced. When a contractor comes out to fix something, you annotate it, and basically it will digitize all the city systems. And it's kind of a long time overdue for this, and it's going to be a lot of work, but once it's in place too, it's really going to help the city, I think, move forward without so much, back and forth emails. Do you know how to, our IT director is the one who noticed that we need to put covers over the splash pad when we winterize it. Because if you don't, it'll, rain and snow into the jets, and then it'll dilute the antifreeze and they freeze up. So we lost, I think, a third of the jets on the splash pad because a few years back, somebody didn't winterize it in the right place. Well, we put a winterization plan for the splash pad. It triggers a bunch of emails, a checklist on how to winterize that splash pad. And going forward, like that splash pad, any other asset that has a winterization plan or an opening plan in perpetuity is just known. So the next Parks and Rec director can come in and you don't have to say, I don't know, Roddy had like a bunch of checklists. We don't really know where they're at. And it's just, here's a system and it'll tell you what to do. You're great though, Roddy.
You're not trying to automate Roddy, are you?
You know,
You're talking about the program, right?
The program,
Oh, okay.
I did talk to Councilor White about this, I am a little jealous. I was like, do they have the city manager automation? I could just kick out work orders to me all day. Gosh, I wish. Maybe someday that'll be the case, but as of yet, they have not provided that solution, so.
Councilor White, is your digital hand up?
Thank you. Charlie, is there going to be, I have a couple questions for you. Is there going to be counselor access to this, like a read-only, so we can kind of go in there to check out things that we might be interested in?
Absolutely, and I, 100% to the read-only access, and it kind of depends on, how involved council wants to be. If you see something wrong, you can put in potentially a ticket on, like, hey, I saw this, take a picture of it, put it in the system. I actually at one point with this, I was like, can we make this just public so we can crowdsource, issues that people find? I know. But Roddy and I have been looking at another solution for more of our public-facing pieces. There's actually kind of a separate solution I think would be better for that. But Tabitha, to your point, yeah, you'll be able to go in there, see what the work plans are on different areas. That's the other thing is not that we shouldn't be in the credit business, but like a lot of our teams do such an incredible amount of work. But with this system, we'll be able to see, oh, okay, they did this amount of ditching, this amount of maintenance on these areas. And then over time, too, be like, all right, if we need to change priorities, what are we going to have to pull off the priority matrix to move forward on that? I think it'll be a lot better for counselors.
I think it'll be a useful tool, especially when when the public reaches out to us about issues, to be able to go to that first and kind of see if there's anything in there. I'm excited for it. I think this is so overdue. So, yeah. And also, I wanted you to speak, because this wasn't talked about in the budget for FY26. Is this going to blow up the budgets of the different departments that we're going to spread this across?
No, there's a couple areas where appropriate and matched our current TIF areas. That was in the grants, digital grants management, and then the Parks and Recreation that'll be funded through the TIF accounts. There's sufficient areas in the Water Department, professional services for their piece, and then contracts and grants. Contracts and procurement will kind of be spread amongst all the professional services accounts. So, and then we'll have to budget for it moving forward, but again, at about half the amount, just as the digital subscription costs. So, yeah. And
Thank you.
that might change a little bit. That's kind of also not facilities yet, but maybe facilities in the next budget cycle. Not the capital improvement planning. Let's get through the actual priorities matrix on capital improvement planning, and then we'll potentially look to, if we're liking the system, then we add the capital improvement planning module. Same thing with public works. We're sufficiently, or we're significantly, I should say, under budget on our capital roads account. I'll talk about that later in the courthouse line of credit discussion. But there is some funds that could be moved around to cover the Public Works module if we wanted to move forward with that on a quicker basis.
Great. Any other counselor questions for Charlie? Seeing none, how would the council like to proceed? We have a recommended motion from the city manager, the friendly edit to remove the first bullet, as I understand, but otherwise intact.
Does this one require a public hearing?
It does not.
Okay. That is too long a motion to read.
I'm happy to make the motion. I move to authorize the city manager to contract with OpenGov for digital asset management systems, licensing fees, and implementation services in the amount of $147,687.18 for FY '26 to be apportioned from the below accounts: digital asset management system and implementation services for the water department from the water department professional services account, digital asset management system and implementation services for the park and recreation department from the FY '27 unallocated economic development TIF funding account, digital asset management system and implementation services for a digital grants management system from the economic development TIF account, and digital asset management system and implementation services for procurement and contracting, a portion from citywide professional services account. Do I have a second?
Is it done? Oh,
Fabulous.
second it.
We have a second. Any further discussion from council on the motion on the table?
Simply to say thank you for a rock-solid presentation on this. I was not sure how I felt about it early on, but having those webinars and the memo, it's been really helpful to understand what this is going to bring to the city. So thank you for that, the work it took to get that presentation so that we don't have a lot of questions tonight.
Great, thank you.
Appreciate it.
And with that, all those in favor? Tabitha White in affirmative, opposed? Motion carries 5-2. Agenda item number 16, council order number 122505, discussion of school track, fire truck bond anticipation note, sponsored by Councilor O'Halloran.
There was a discussion at a finance meeting that this did not have to come back to the council because there had already been authorization. But I think any time that we are committing Mr. and Mrs. Ellsworth to $1.8 million, it doesn't hurt to make everybody aware of what is going to transpire.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. So we had, as part of the, I think this started with the, the budget process last year, and kind of while we're waiting to do the full 1, 5, and 10-year full fiscal analysis, like what are the big capital items that really have come to the fore that, we can't wait on until we do the full analysis. So we had a fair amount of submissions from across City Hall that were, including repairs on this building and other buildings. And the two that really seemed the most in need was the school track. There's, the pictures of it are just, it looks like Beirut. On that, they can't hold track meets anymore. It's not safe to be on. It really is expired its last useful life. It's over 30 years old, I believe. Might even be a little older than that. And so that one, we really felt like, talking with the school superintendent who brought it forward, that was a very big one to bring forward. And then we had some discussion over whether it was going to be tanker 4 for the fire department, which is also probably our oldest piece, but also that one's working pretty well. And then the engine 7 was really the one that, the fire department, both from a management and seems like a line level, really felt like this is the one we need to look towards replacing. So with the bond anticipation note, this allows us to go out and procure these these two RFPs, and we'll get some bids for them. I think the school track is already posted, right, Nate? Is there an RFP on the school track out yet? I can't remember, Nate or Ronnie.
I'd have to confirm with Amy on that, I'm not sure.
I know I've had discussions with the fire department. They're lining up kind of engine 7, and we'll be coming back to council on that process too. We'll get RFPs back for them, and then we'll have the ability to allocate through a bond anticipation note to those projects. Again, we'll be coming back to council once we actually receive bids back, so you know what we're going to move forward on in these very big items. And then this step, which, as Nate mentioned before, doesn't require a council approval piece. It's the the putting out the band to bid and going with the lowest bidder, unless there's a really good reason not to. These are all local banks, though. The Nate makes sure to reach out each time. And then just for the newer counselors here, the kind of way this process works is, Nate will choose the lowest percentage rate on the bond anticipation note. We'll receive the RFPs for the track and for the tank, or for the engine 7. We'll bring those to the city council at some point in time when they're prepared, and we feel like we have a recommendation to say yes to move forward or no, and the council can decide, yep, we think this, and then we'll have all the pieces in place so that we can pull from the bond anticipation note. It doesn't cost us anything until we pull it, but once we pull it, then we start accruing that interest on that bond anticipation note. So let's say, in February, the track gets brought forward for around what we thought. If the council were to move forward, we'd pull from the bond anticipation note to fund that project, hopefully at the end of the school season this year. So in the summertime, we can get the track rebuilt and it's ready in the fall. We band for it, in the winter, early spring, and then in the fall, we go to the bond bank, the Maine Municipal Bond Bank, and we convert that band into a bond, which we try to turn around as quickly as possible so that hopefully we can get a lower kind of bond rating or bond on that project moving forward. If the fire engine or tanker is also in there, that would also be part of it. And then that bond, we'd scope to be for the lifetime of the piece of equipment. So and we can do two separate ones if needed be. One could, the school track had a 30-year life the last time around. That could be a 30-year bond. We may decide for other reasons we don't want it to be necessarily be that long. And the same thing with the fire engine and tanker. And as we talked about in digital services, we do have debt book, which explains, what our kind of debt service is year to year. This next year, it's going to increase by about $400,000. We have a 7-year bond on the $2 million in roads that we did this year, which was a lot of deferred maintenance. And then the year after that, though, our debt service drops by a few $100,000 or so. So hopefully this can kind of get slotted in for the track and the fire engine, so that the following, I know now we're into fiscal year 29, when that bond payments are due, we're really just covering the interest on the band as kind of next year's fiscal coverage. The year after that, that's when we're going to have the bond payment due. So hopefully we're also keeping a pretty level trajectory on our bond and kind of debt service. I think we're at $1 million. We'll probably go up to about $1.4 million with the roads next year. And we did an analysis. We recently talked about at the Finance Committee meeting. We're on the low end of kind of how much debt we have as an organization for like cities and towns. There's some that have even lower. I think it was, what did we say, Steve? Freeport. Camden. Yeah, Camden, I think Freeport had, I think it was
Freeport, yeah.
Freeport.
Money Bank.
Yeah, and then there was much higher. There was like Bar Harbor was on the much higher end of the spectrum. As I mentioned, they're also pulling in a couple of $1 million a year in parking kiosk money. So maybe that could be a decision for them to, they wanted to go with higher end debt service and use some of those funds there. There is a state law that says you can't spend more than this on debt service. We're nowhere near that, and we won't be for some period of time. And also, this seemed very reasonable. Just for backstory on that budget and where we're at, these were two priority items. When we bring forward the SIP plan, the 1, 5, and 10-year SIP plan, it's going to be for a lot more, and that's really probably where we're going to have some policy discussions as a council on how to prioritize those pieces within city budgets, how much deferred maintenance we want to start addressing, And there's kind of I'm of two minds there. One, I'm like really excited to finally have all that information, and one, I'm really terrified to finally have that information, because it's going to show us, like, if we don't deal with this, here's here's going to be the consequence of that. So we can't kick the can down the road, I think, as you mentioned, Steve, on a couple of these pieces. We'll know exactly what cans we're kicking down the road, so.
Great. Thank you. Any questions for Manager Pierce? I think seeing none, move on to the next agenda item. Thank you, Manager Pierce. Council Order Number 122506, Public Hearing Potential Action on Contracting for Assessing Contracting Services.
Yep, thank you, Chair Lyons, and the Deputy City Managers put together a memo here. And also a big thanks to the whole teams that have been working on this. I know when we started with the finances a while ago, I think one of the difficult parts about this job is having difficult conversations about pieces of city government that aren't working up to snuff. And this is a big piece of it. We've been working on the finance side for a long time. We have a long ways to go there, but I think we've been having some open and honest conversations of kind of where we're at from a systems perspective with that finance piece, and we've got a clear kind of pathway for how we're going to get our fiscal accounts back in order, reconciliations, caught up on audits. We're on time on our budgets again, all things that could not be said a year and a half ago when I took this position, I think. And then, this was going into this tax commitment time of year. We did a lot of work to get those budget pieces back. I don't think I really realized upon arrival on just how similar in some ways the growth and pressures on our assessing services had become, as I mentioned in the workshop previously on this, and in a previous meeting on just how, this, I think it's like a $700 million valuation increase from 2020 to 2025 the city saw. But between 2009 and 2020, you're looking at like a $100 million increase. So from an assessment level, I know we went into this in detail. You can see me on the chalkboard if you really want to nerd out in there. That really put a ton of pressure on our system to kind of meet that need and demand. In this year, and then also how do we keep up with those valuations? So we haven't had on-time tax bills in some time. Last year, the tax bill arrived after the interest was already being due on that bill. As I've mentioned, it's kind of like you really can't, it's like sending hate mail against yourself to all your citizens when every single year, and then also the pressure it puts on citizens when they're calling our front office, hey, when's that tax bill coming out? Did I miss it? And I talked to one of the people that were working on the finance redo, they said, hey, you should really try to have a period of time when the people in the clerk's office can't go on vacation when tax bills are coming out. I was like, that could be a 3-month period. We couldn't do that. And we have other pieces, in our, I think it was the Betty reimbursements. We just recently, the state of Maine noted that there was an error in there that we're going to have to pay back over $200,000 to a misclassification of a single printer as 2023 printers as opposed to one printer in the year 2023. That mistake got carried over into 2024. So again, 2023 printers being claimed. Now we're going to have to pay back that $200,000 and kind of adjust our cash flows for the next year. Fortunately, the state's been kind on that, and they're going to pull from future reimbursements in those accounts, but our revenues are going to show a big error in that this year. So before I go too down the line, I'm going to send it over to Sarah to kind of go through the proposals and where we're at.
Hi, everyone. Sarah Devlin, Deputy City Manager. Thank you, Charlie, for kind of setting the stage and giving some background. I just wanted to update a little bit of what the difference is from the proposal that we discussed in October to now, and what, some conversations that we've had since October. One being that at the October meeting, we did hear from some residents about the 1975 assessing issues that were experienced at that point. I was able to connect with some of the residents, some of the folks that did speak at that meeting, and also Sewell Company. And I just want to make sure it's very clear that that was a reevaluation process. This is assessing support services. So this is to help us avoid a reevaluation process. This is to help us, specifically with this RFP that we posted, it was really focused on our personal property, which Charlie just mentioned there was an error in previously. So it's looking at doing our personal property commitment, new permits and field work, and a business redesign for the assessing department to make sure that our standard operating procedures, our staffing levels, all of that are in line, that help us keep away from having a partial reevaluation, a full reevaluation, gives us the best-in-class service for our residents, gives us the opportunity to have more proactive communication with our residents during tax season, prior to tax bills even going out, when assessments may be adjusted, peaks in assessments, we can send out communications prior to people sending their tax bills, receiving their tax bills, so that there can be some communication. So we posted the updated RFP with this hybrid model that would keep our city assessor in place, and then these support services, like I said, focused on personal property, new permits, field work, and the business redesign for the assessing department, also helping with abatements if we need it, and other statistical evaluations. This is not a full outsourcing of the assessing department. This is insourcing some additional resources for what, in my opinion, has been an under-resourced department. So we received 2 RFPs. We put together a team that reviewed them. The team consisted of myself, city manager Piers, our planning department, our city assessor, our code department. We evaluated, and the staff recommended moving forward with RCS Assessment Services based on their proposal. It's a total contract amount for it's 3 calendar years, but it would span over 4 fiscal years, of $450,000. It's broken out, I believe, in the memo that was provided for you, and this would come from unallocated TIF funding sources.
Yeah, I should note too, this is, the unallocated TIF will be part of this first year piece especially, but, this is, I think, the piece in city government that's going to need the most modernizing. And I know our code team, we're looking to potentially or likely not backfill a code assistant position there, and in the future apply those funds instead of to a backfill in the code area to this piece, really trying to align code, planning, assessing, all those pieces together. And I think the whole team recognizes that this is the piece that we need to get the tax bills out on time. That's a big part of it. But this is also a business process redesign as well. We need a best-in-class, especially Sarah and I have probably met with 3 or 4 assessing firms, since then, people that just reached out and said, hey, this is kind of the future. A lot of cities and towns are dealing with this. Some outsource completely, some have, fully, I think 3.5 is what the Deputy Director of Revenue Services and their kind of manual said for a city the size of Ellsworth would be if it was all in-house. Some could be kind of a hybrid model like this. So getting out the tax bills on time, getting that clear communications ahead of time, as we discussed at the workshop, we essentially did a 30% kind of revaluation or increase in the waterfront properties almost across the board. That was essentially a partial revaluation of a large component of the city. So, if that type of thing were to occur in the future, how do we message that better? How do people have our processes better? If you look on our website right now, for details on how the assessing process, it's pretty broad. Some of the videos are one from Canada on how assessing works, and the details of the assessing process are kind of like that. We need detailed kind of manuals for how this works. And I think Ellsworth used to have like a board of assessing appeals. That can be problematic for its own reason, but to really have this, RCS is a pretty substantially sized firm. They can also help us with just the new growth that we're having too. That Hilton Home to Suites, it's going to be a $20+ million property that's going to be assessed. The 2 new tractor dealerships, the Dice Arts, these other pieces. So having a firm of this size to be able to kind of surge in here, help us do the new valuations, get our tax bills on time, do our business process redesigns, I think we had in our TIF discussion as well that, they noted that this type of thing, TIF funding can be done for economic development purposes. That's why we're in this position with so much increased economic development activity. So I think for the near term, for the next 3 years, this makes sense for the city. We might want to look at an outsource at a future date, like other cities and towns have looked at, but this is going to get us to kind of where we need to be, avoid a revaluation, and get our tax bills out on time.
Now, I would just note that RCS has 17 people on staff, ranging from multiple assessors to GIS support staff, which Charlie mentioned earlier. Vision is our GIS assessing software. So they have a wide range of skill set, and they're in Herman, Maine. That's where they're based out of, so not too far away, with a lot of available resources.
Thank you, Charlie and Sarah. Councilors, questions for the city manager or deputy city manager regarding this proposal? Councilor Shea?
So, just so everybody knows, I understand, and everybody else, we're just contracting portions. So we're getting staff to help out doing certain portions of it. And it's going to be supervised by the assessor.
Correct.
Right,
Our current assessor will remain the city certified assessor.
yeah.
And we plan to keep a assessor's assistant type role, and then but we're not going to backfill on the code assistant piece, because this is the piece that really needs a surge in resources. So to your point, Councilor Shea, and I know that was one of the things we talked about. I know Councilor Martineau, you mentioned what was some of the major pushback before, and it really seemed a lot of lines on just, that losing that local control of this piece. And, we did a lot of work after that meeting to kind of relook at this, and, especially after talking to all these additional people, this really feels like the best way to get another best-in-class service in the city of Ellsworth. Our finance department, our assessing department, all the digital modernizations we just talked about, so that we can send out our tax bills on time, so that we can have budgets that are delivered on time. This is kind of the blocking and tackling of government. I did not want to be in this role to have to figure these pieces out, but they've been broken for some time now, and sometimes that means you have to have tough conversations to really figure out the best path forward. And I think this is going to get us there for the next 3 years, and with our new contracting, and if the council so wishes, our contracting and procurement system moving forward, we'll know when this contract is up for renewal. We'll see the analysis. We'll do a cost analysis. We'll put it back out there if we proceed forward. Maybe we're liking exactly where we're at. And the other piece is that avoiding the revaluation. That is a very expensive. So this kind of puts us in the $400,000 place. We already kind of did a partial revaluation, but there might be inequities, in certain pieces of it. And we're seeing all this new growth. Revaluation is by its own is a $500,000 exercise, and you're not redesigning the actual system. So I really feel like this proposal can get us to where we need to go, and likely avoid a revaluation, although that might not be off the table. When an expert firm comes in here, they may say, hey, I'm seeing so much inequity, we need a revaluation. I don't think that's the case. From my analysis, we don't have a ton of abatements that have, with that 30% change in the waterfront area that have come through as of yet. So hopefully this is kind of, that was a partial revaluation already. It probably wasn't messaged early enough, but hopefully we can kind of keep up with the new growth in the right categories. Or, there's a possibility too that the economy stalls, and the valuation is really ensuring equity amongst the categories themselves, which we could also apply this group to. So,
Councilor Smith?
Thank you. To Sarah, I'm looking halfway down the second page of your memo, and there's one point I just want to highlight with the paragraph that says since October, staff discussions. It basically shows that assessing has been understaffed, or we kept the same staffing level as the city grew, as the evaluation grew, and that's the basis for this. Then below that, at the end, it's with additional resources, Ellsworth will. And I would say that there are some critical things here about completing the assessments by July of each year, improve customer service with specific tasks, provide taxpayers previews of their assessments before billing is issued, and then take a proactive approach to market analysis and more. I would like to pin for a year from now, getting a report back on have we achieved the goals, that this is, we are making an investment, we're expanding capacity, and these are the outcomes we're expecting that make it better for all property taxes and for the flow of the city. So if we can get a report back a year from now, sound reasonable? By now,
Absolutely.
we'll know where we are.
Yeah, and probably, so obviously, we have a July 1st, tax commitment to get out too. As, I know we talked in the Finance Committee meeting, I think, about this. My first year, the priority was getting that budget together. We passed that just before the fiscal year ended. It was an enormous lift to go from where we were to there. This last year, we put a ton of effort, and we were way on time with our budgets. We were, I think probably before the schools for the first time in many years. And then that commitment piece, that's the one that went beyond the deadlines. Again, we made some internal process improvements last year. Clearly, it wasn't enough. And that's really what sparked this, all right, we got to start thinking outside the box to get this service back in line. And there's it's not just that big deliverable, some of the ones you mentioned, but there's things like right now you can download a PDF, fill it out, bring it into this city hall. Like, we can digitize that process, right? We can create online forms where people can have that abatement. What is the process when you finish an abatement request? What's the timeline for receiving a response by? How many of those have been done? How can we have mechanisms in place or escalatory resources where, wow, we just got a ton of abatement requests. Let's surge resources in here so that those citizens who are looking for requests and responses actually get them on time. I've been a part of many government turnarounds and departmental turnarounds, in Ellsworth and elsewhere. This is very tough, difficult work, but I know our teams are ready to really prioritize this and make sure that this becomes a best-in-class service for the city of Ellsworth.
Great, thank you. Any other councilor questions? I see Councilor White's digital hand. Oh, you're muted. Or your mic.
I know, sorry about that. I don't want you to hear me grunting and groaning over here, my back pain. So my question is, how does our city assessor work with this team? Are they partners and working together? Are they divvying up and dividing and conquering? And on that, who has, and if it even is relevant here, the final say in these things?
Well, I would say that it is going to be a division of work, as the contractor will be mostly focusing on personal property and doing the field work for new permits. And as our city assessor, I would say Larry has the final say. But they'll be working really closely together. It was really important to have Larry as part of these discussions and the evaluation of the proposals. So I think it's pretty clear that he's anxious to get started with some additional resources and looking forward to working together with the contractor.
Yeah, and in your second piece, the city assessor is, I believe they're an agent of the state. So in
Yeah.
some ways, I can't, and the city council can't say, yeah, we don't want to revalue this, this by this amount this year. We don't think, that's, as long as the city assessor is using sound principles, and having talked to a bunch, there are a lot of different, ways to do this. You can do it across the board on a specific section that you feel like needs to be caught up, like we saw with waterfront having the 30% as opposed to, I think it was 18 and 16 for commercial and non-waterfront properties. Or, some can do just across the board X amount of percent. You can do a revaluation to really dial into every single property on how it differs from the next one. I think there's statistical adjustments, so you can look at different, I believe, value types within a category and say, okay, new waterfront could be this. So I think also, in talking with Larry and having some of these other pieces, and resources will give him and this contractor, also a series of certified assessors, the ability to have the time to do those things as opposed to just trying to get it all in there and get an assessment out so we can send the tax bills. I know that's been a frustration for me of how much work we put into the budget process. And then not to have the time at that back end when the commitment's coming due because, like, hey, we need to, you saw it with some of the mistakes that we're now having to pay back here. This is a big piece of it. Having it by that July deadline will give us some of the time to be like, okay, this is what the mill rate's gonna be. This is, messaging ahead of time if we are doing large valuation changes to some cities and towns, send out that, here, this is your reassessment before you get your tax bill. So it doesn't come as a bam, bam. You got reassessed by this much, and here's your tax bill. It's, hey, this is your assessed value, come back in. So we'll kind of have some more support for getting ahead of that next time.
Great.
Um,
Councilor
uh,
Brennan.
Is this, the cost proposal is for 3 years. Are we committing to 3 years? We are committing to 3 years.
Yeah, I think there's a break in the contract. This also, I should note, and this is similar, I think, a bit of a confusion for last time around. This authorizes me to move forward with the contract, which the council has seen, and at that proposed price point, but also to negotiate here on some of these proposals. So if we're not getting best-in-class service at year one, we can decide to cancel the contract and move forward in another direction. We're not committed regardless of the service we were getting
Yeah,
for the
that-
3.
Yeah, without penalty.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that'll be kind of the next step here upon authorization. I'll go out, and make sure that we, we're getting a contract that's going to protect all those interests and move forward. And have some more conversations with our teams too on here's what the contract came back at. Here's where we're at. Like, do we want to move forward with this? And that was the same thing with the full outsource. That could have been a contract. There is a possibility there, but would we want to move forward on that, working behind the scenes to kind of negotiate that and then move forward with those contracts either now or in the future? Obviously, this is a big part of city government, so we want to make sure it's done well, it's done right, and yeah.
Yes.
This is a dumb question. I'm sure you've discussed it. Why don't we just hire 3.5 assessors?
It's there's a long lead time up for this. So this is not the city is, over the past 3 or 4 years, has had a rotation of assistants in that department and has tried this kind of process before, but, this is not something you spin up quickly. In order
So
to,
it's time of the essence right now?
absolutely.
And so
Yeah.
these people can step in, is that what you're saying?
Absolutely, yep.
Okay.
Yep. And this wasn't just last year, this has been multiple years of not getting there on time. This is going to allow us to do that quickly and effectively with this proposal. And we were glad to get 2 proposals on this one to kind of sort through and really feel like this is the best
I
one.
understand.
Yep.
Thanks.
Any other questions from counselors for Charlie and Sarah? Seeing none, this is a public, I'm going to open the public hearing. If anyone would like to, from the public, provide comments on this matter, please approach the dais, give us your name and residency, and we ask you to keep your comments to 3 minutes or less.
Well, just to reiterate, my name is Luna Pinder. I am the former assistant assessor for the city of Ellsworth and a concerned citizen, currently residing in Franklin, future residing in Ellsworth. As Sarah just previously mentioned, I did have a statement prepared for the events of the October 20th meeting and the inconsistencies as was stated just now. In an effort not to repeat myself with information already provided, I do just want to say this. When the October 20th meeting was held, the motion was to dissolve the entire assessing department, and then upon that approval of dissolving the department, award a contract to Down East Assessing. I had already brought up major concerns about the logistics of that, which Sarah had mentioned is now seen as valid. And at the time, they were not taken seriously. Before the vote was actually to be called into motion. What if that vote had gone differently on the 20th? What if we did vote, or you vote, to dissolve the assessing department and award the contract to Down East Assessing, which we now know by confirmation statements given from both the city manager and the deputy city manager would have not been a feasible plan? the budget that was associated with that contract approval on the 20th, which could have been awarded, would have been severely incorrect. That contract would have had to be increased because the scope of the work on the RFP that was put out was so grossly understated, which, as we have come to find out, is now true. I just sincerely and respectfully want to urge the council in future investigations on this matter and others to truly do the due diligence to find these things out before a motion is put up to vote, before essential changes to necessary and essential functioning departments of this government are irrevocably changed. I think it's important to truly understand the operational, financial, and long-term impacts, and more importantly, to allow the public awareness and time to make up their own mind about the issue, which there was none before the October 20th meeting. I am glad to see that things have finally changed now, and that we are on seemingly the right path, but this still does not ease concerns that if this happened once, it can happen again. So, with respect, as I said, I understand that what you do as a city council is very difficult work. I understand that every decision will not be unanimous sometimes. I get that. However, I do really believe that every single public community member of Ellsworth and people like me who spend 99% of their work life and financial life in Ellsworth and benefit it greatly also have the transparency and analysis and research and proper due diligence done for all decisions that are made by this body. Thank you.
Any other members of the public that would like to provide comments on this matter?
My name is Ralph Jordan. I'm from Ellsworth, Bayside Road. So I have a couple of questions. I read in one article where Mr. Gardner says he'd like to retire in a couple of years. So say if Mr. Gardner decides that he wants to retire next year or the year after, right in the middle of this 3-year contract, what happens then? Are we going to replace him? Or are we just going to say, okay, we're going to let this organization take over completely now? That's one of my questions. Now a comment. You know, I've sat in this chamber a few times, looked at this wonderful painting behind you, and thought about history. The White House that you see that was the library was my family's home. That river was the river that my family came up here 300 years ago and settled on. The Black Mansion is where some of my family did business with Mr. Black. If you look out that door and see the church over there, my family donated land for that church, or the original church, I should say, on that property. So I think from last council meeting when we discussed this, as I was leaving, I heard you say, we're going to go back, I think we're going to do this anyway. It was a complete disrespect of what the citizens said that stood at this dais. I don't know how many people spoke last time, but I know 3 people did. There was me, Miss Maddox Wilbur, and Mr. Shea. And we all voiced our opinion and our experiences, our history of this town. Together, that's over 200 years of history between the 3 of us, because we're all old. I hope in the future that you can respect a little bit more our experiences in this town, our history in this town. And I hope, Mr. Pierce, you do the same, because I think you've been very disrespectful.
Any other comments on this matter from the public? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. How would the council like to proceed on this matter? Councilor Heller?
Before we proceed, I do have a couple of questions. What was the other bids? I always get concerned when we hear that it's gone out to bid and we're only presented with one bid.
The other bid was from Down East Assessing. It was significantly higher in cost than this bid. And the team felt like they didn't have sufficient resources as far as their team was limited to 2. This team was much more expansive.
Yeah,
If I may, was it put out at the same time? Was this a rebid?
So-
And what was this number?
So it was all posted, the RFP was posted, it was posted the way we post all our RFPs to the city website. We then posted it to Maine Municipal, and Larry posted it to the Maine Assessing listserv. So it was posted to all of those locations. There was a question period where potential bidders were able to ask questions for addendums to the RFP. The 2 firms that bid both submitted questions. Those were posted in response. The other bid was about $100,000 more.
Yeah, I should note a few things. One of the, I think a procurement system is going to help with this piece on making it a lot easier and transparent. And the other thing, after discussion with legal counsel, both on the last one and this piece, on every single piece of that, they designed in many ways that motion order for discussion. And I should also, I disagree a little bit on the other proposal from Down East. I'm not quite sure that this firm has more resources, substantially more. I do think the other firm might have been, and could still be. I could have a contract negotiation discussion with RCS if the council was to want to move forward, and I might come back and say, I'm not sure if we were able to meet some of these conditions on kind of getting things, and I might want to look at.
Yeah, that was just the observation from the committee that looked at the proposals.
But I can see in the future, Steve, to your point. I know I've endeavored to keep both of those there, but we haven't been mentioning some of the price points of the specific one on legal guidance that could affect the negotiation with those bidders.
When you put an RFP out, I would think if this body is going to make a decision, we ought to have the facts in front of us.
Any other questions or comments from council on this matter before we vote? Okay, seeing none, we have a suggested motion from the deputy city manager. I believe we have an slightly updated proposal that was provided us with our materials of this evening. Would anyone like to propose a motion based on that or otherwise? Seeing none, I would be happy to propose a motion.
I'm being polite and trying not to take all emotions.
Go ahead, take.
Please take the motion.
Okay, I will move to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with RCS Assessment Services for the provision of assessing services in the amount not to exceed $72,500 for fiscal year 2026, $147,500 for fiscal year 2027, and $152,500 for fiscal year 2028, $77,500 for fiscal year 2029, with the funding coming from unallocated to funding.
Do I have a second?
Just seconded.
Second. All those in favor? Councilor White and Shea. All those opposed? Councilor Herron? Carries 6-1. You just get one vote, Steve. Excellent, thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 18, council order number 122507. Public hearing action on the request of the solid waste department to increase the cost of trash stickers from $3 to $4, increase the scale tonnage fee from $110 to $160 a ton, and creating a minimum charge of $8 or 100 pounds and eliminating residential billing.
Mike Ayers, Public Works Director. Just a brief introduction on the history. We've met with the Solid Waste Committee on this a couple of times, and there was other things that were discussed, but the two short-term things that were discussed were raising the sticker price and adjusting the billing for our residents at the transfer station. And now I'm going to turn it over to Dave Soper, our transfer station manager, and he can address any questions that you guys might have with it.
I am David Soper, the transfer station supervisor. Solid Waste Department currently operating an annual deficit of approximately $300,000, which is supplemented by the tax dollars. We have faced steadily rising operation costs, including disposal contracts, hauling, fuel, and labor. And the existing sticker system and current tonnage fee structure has not kept pace with these costs. The last time the sticker fee was increased was 2015 when it went from $2 to $3. Time before that was 2000 when it went from 1 to 2. So in the last 25 years, it's only increased twice. The scale weighs in 20-pound intervals. When the residents are weighing 20 to 40 pounds, they're paying less than what the sticker fee price is right now. With the current billing process, many scale users are only, when they're weighing at 20 to 40 pounds, they're only getting charged $1.10 to $2.20, requiring staff time, postage to generate invoices, and if the payment's not received, the second invoice is then mailed again with, I've heard, 0% interest, sometimes 1% penalty, but this process is not effective. So the changes that are being proposed are to increase the trash sticker from $3 to $4, increase the scale tonnage fee from 110 to 160, and also create a minimum charge of $8 or 100 pounds, and it require a point of service payments for when people do weigh on the scale.
Thank you, David. Counselors, questions for our transfer station supervisor or public works supervisor, superintendent, super something? Counselor Shea?
Do you really think that with raising it just $1 is going to help out as far as dump stickers? Just individual dump stickers? I mean, 3 to 4.
It's a start. I know it's not going to cover all of it, but
I'm looking for, really, in reality, I really don't want to see you come back here and ask them for another $1 next year. I'd rather, June, just get it, because really, in a way, some of the taxpayers do buy the dump stickers and they have service to pick it up, and then others choose to go there. And, and then you got people that have multiple units and they provide for their tenants to dispose of the trash. So it's a little bit more cost effective and a little easier in time, effort. Instead of buying the stickers, pull on the scales and weigh up. Although I have been up there several times and see somebody pull on the scales with a pickup truck, back up and toss one bag in, which takes wear and tear on your scales.
And just to jump in here, I know, Dave, we have had some discussions in the past, and it was just on this point, actually, and Dave came back up. I'll never forget it. He's brand new. We brought him in last year. He's like top-notch on these pieces. He's also in our adaptive leadership trainings. He was like the star of that piece, talking about this as kind of his leader. And I think, and I hate to speak for you here, Dave, but, feel free to be a little broader, like this was kind of a first step. This isn't gonna be like, we do $1 and X amount increase. You talked about the behavior changes that could come along with this. This is 10 years since the last time it's changed, and we are probably gonna have to come back with more.
We're not totally limited to just City of Ellsworth residents.
No, that's kind of, when you want to talk more about kind of the external
Yeah,
residents?
I mean, so right now, we don't have any policies in place, and we actually allow non-residents to dump, but that was another one of my things in the future, not tonight, but was to charge non-residents a higher price because of the operation costs now are being supplemented by the city's tax dollars. So I didn't think it was fair for non-residents to come in and dump for the same price when they're not supplementing any tax money. So I think at some point we need to charge them a higher price, and it would also encourage them to use their own transfer station and not ours. Because right now we're one of the cheapest around. I've done some more research, like looking into other transfer stations that charge by the pound, and there's some that are even $300 a ton, $400 a ton. EMR's at 185, we're at 110. So what I've seen is we have some residents coming from Trenton, and I think it's because our transfer station is so much cheaper than theirs that while they're coming to the city to do shopping, they're just bringing their trash to us.
I have a comment and question, or mostly comment. I've been sitting on the Solid Waste Committee too, Pat. Last year, there was conversation, we've updated the council before last year, but for the new councilor, I think, it's been said, this is first step, right? But we're talking about a long-term solution to where we get the solid waste aspects of the town to be really like a enterprise fund where it pays for, it's cost neutral. So I think, I hear you, and I think it's, we're coming back. And I agree, like, I'd rather, but I think at this point, as I understand it, is like, this is a good first step. We don't want to, rock the boat too much, but at the same time, we need to keep taking positive steps towards a cost-neutral solid waste services. So that's why, for me, I'm personally in support of this first step, knowing it's part of a broader schedule. If this was just we're just going to see what happens kind of thing, I think I would have concerns with that, but as I understand it, this is a first step in a few steps to get us to that point.
And I believe we budgeted this year for the possible increase, and we still haven't done the increase, so.
Yeah, we should probably get on that then.
It's not a good
Yeah.
thing.
Councilor Mountain.
The cost neutral scenario, is that a projected result of having outside people pay to dump in Ellsworth? I don't.
These gentlemen can speak better to that, but I think it's there's no one solution. I think it's a multi-pronged approach.
I guess I don't understand. Is this our goodwill to the world? Is that why people can bring their trash here?
I can speak kind of broadly on this, on why this multi-step. Yeah, I think as Mr. Soper outlined, we're cheaper than other people. And then there's this other piece on like we weren't scaling in there. So there's you could go to the dump and get a smoking deal if you just went to the dump and paid pennies on the dollar for your actual amount of trash you're dispersing, and we don't even require residents. So we were letting that deal kind of be around. We're going to make some changes here, upgrade the fee. There could be additional pieces, but then there's a larger kind of look back, which again relates to the procurement conversation. But when I think it was a single bid, and on the Casella, I think I remember a news story on this, and the price spiked dramatically.
Yeah, it went from 70,000 to 208,000. And
So-
then with the escalation, we're now at 258,000 for curbside collection.
And so that's the curbside of the bags. Now there might be a scenario where, if we want to true cost this, right, that fee might have to be a lot more than that. But then I think Dave mentioned, we do that, people can start throwing their trash everywhere. Maybe we could true cost it by in the future, we could think about insourcing this and doing a compost program and getting a grant for a truck. That's an idea. Maybe that will be worthwhile pursuing with the green team. Maybe it won't. Maybe we could have a kind of a direct point of, you get like the actual, I think I've seen this in the Castine Road, like the Casella actual bin, and you pay for what it costs to have them do the service, as opposed to everybody can put a bag out there. I know I've talked to some people that there's like actual external consultants that will pick up your trash for you instead of having Casella do it, and you can get cheaper by not even using the sticker. They'll pick up your trash and then take it to our transfer station. So the economics of this are not working out right. Like, and we'll see kind of how this works and the changes we make if some people stop paying for those private services that are literally picking up people's bags and then charging cheaper than the sticker fee.
Well,
So
even further down the pike, this, forgive me, this is a landfill, correct? Will eventually have to be capped?
No, we're
Oh,
a
it's a transfer
station.
station.
So
Okay, all right.
the two major cost centers that we're looking at in the future, among other things that will, we hope, reduce this deficit, are things that are going to require significant investment. And so we want to get the ball rolling, but we want to also do a serious cost analysis on, the amount of money we're spending just to have them haul the containers from our transfer station to Bangor is one contract that we're dealing with. And we're probably around $60,000 a year that we're dealing with that one. And then in '27, the curbside collection comes back up. And if we're at 250, 60,000 now, we don't know what we're gonna end up with in the next one, but it may be that we look at being self-sustaining and do it ourselves. So, there needs to be a deep dive cost analysis on if we go that direction, does it really make sense for us physically? Is it physically responsible for us to do that? But for now, it's not fair to the rest of the taxpayers to keep subsidizing $300,000 in loss every year. And so we need to start making adjustments to, at least try to mitigate that in the short term. And, then working with the Solid Waste Committee and working with Charlie and the council, be able to craft a really long-term sustainable solution that we can all get behind and move forward with.
Any other, Councilor Smith?
I'm going to say I support the three segments of the motion that you're making. I think they make sense, having had many trash talk conversations over probably the last year. I swear we called it trash talk before. I don't think I made that up.
That's the first time I heard it.
All right. So I think that the $3 to $4 strikes that balance of people still feel a value versus changing their behavior to the point where they're no longer legally disposing of their trash. The second is requiring the point of sale payment, because one of the first, I've admitted before, I'm a regular at the transfer station. And the time and money wasted with an invoice where I get an invoice for $1.10, and then I have to use a stamp to send it to the city, and back and forth. Point of sale, just make it work, makes perfect sense. And the one piece I was concerned about that you've resolved in a way I think is very appropriate, we were talking about eliminating residential trash drop-off. And again, as I spend time there and I'm watching people, a lot of people are taking their household trash. And I understood the need and what you were talking about, but I was concerned about, it sounded like eliminating that option. And I think going to the $8 or the equivalent of 2 bags as the minimum sounds like a really smart way to address a couple of issues that were in play with that. So these three pieces, as a regular at the transfer station and the recycle center, I think you have threaded the needle on the right solutions at this time. And I'm looking at the memo at the future, and long-term. There's more to look at in the future, but I like the steps that you've got in this at this time. And I will just say it again, anytime I go there, the people working there are attentive. I get a consistent, correct answer. It's not a horrible part of my Saturday morning to go to the transfer station because everything runs smoothly. So,
Thank you.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I agree. It's very well run, so it's clean and professional, and so thank you guys. Any other counselor questions? Counselor Shea?
I'm not opposed to raising the fee to $5 and adjusting the tipping fee for weighing in, okay? Because I think that even if we did raise it $3, those people that don't want to pay, they're going to do all kinds of cheating by, anything from red tape instead of buying the stickers. And those ones that are tossing it alongside the road somewhere, like out towards Starball or out to Happy Town, they're still going to do it. And the issue about proving residency, if we were in some sort of agreement that Trenton and Otis was combined with us, then we could have a sticker for a vehicle so you could be able to choose the residency or be able to see it, or a tag that hung from their rearview mirror. It makes it easier for the attendant that way. But then it's still the cost of getting rid of it. We make the trash, we gotta get rid of it. You know what I mean? It costs money to cap landfills.
I don't want to stop like refusing trash from
No.
non-residents
No.
because like some of the surrounding towns like Winter Harbor or Hancock, they have trash pickup, but only like one day a week. So if they miss their pickup, they like to bring their trash to us. I mean, I don't want to see anybody get stuck with their
But,
trash. I just want to see fairness across the board.
But maybe
that's
there
all.
could be a change to that fee for external residents, but that would be a little bit of a process change for you all
But
too.
I just soon have the fee up a little bit to, make it all aligned for everything. You know what I mean? It's kind of, unfortunately, it's a necessary evil. I don't really want to pay $5 a sticker or raise the fee for tipping when I pull onto the scales, but when I go up there, I've got a fairly good-sized pickup load, but it varies upon what I put in there. And I would rather encourage people to recycle. Okay?
I know it seems expensive, but we are far cheaper than
Yeah.
a lot of other transfer stations.
Right. I don't want to be the bargain basement of transfer stations either.
The only one comment I would make, Steve, is if that is something that you want to put forward, it's not something that we have discussed with the solid waste committee or we haven't done any calculations based on a $5 trash sticker, so I'm just letting the council know that would definitely be something in your purview that you decided to do, but I can't give you beneficial information on if we went to $5. That's all.
Thanks, Mike. This is a public hearing, so I'm going to open the public hearing and invite comments from the public regarding this matter. If anyone has a comment, please approach the DS, push mic out of the way, and then provide your comment. Don't push mic out of the way, but
Yeah, I want to make money off your trash.
So I guess my question is, I feel that, by me having a dumpster at my house, it's a little cheaper than it is going to the transfer station. And they base, like, my dumpster's a 4-yard dumpster, and it's based, each yard is based off 100 pounds in the trash world through, these other companies. So on this one, is the ton actually 2,000 pounds? Or how are they? So, in the long run, I feel like I'm getting a better deal if you go to 160 to continue to have the dumpster and have them come dump it twice a week than I would be if I was to run up there, because obviously, I would have to go dump my trash more than the dump is open. But the other question I have is, before, the DM&J went out back, we had people dropping off metal to the dump for free, and they were actually selling that for profit. When DM&J come out there, they stopped taking the metal, so the dump stopped making the profit off the scrap metal. So I guess, you know, to me, they kind of shot themselves in the foot at that point in time because they were actually profiting for something that was free to only relying on the trash now. And I was told that, you know, a actual resident just couldn't come up and use, or it's not supposed to just use the scale unless they have, I don't know, you just can't hop on the scale without having signed up for it or something, or.
Yeah, they have
Oh, just real quick, Mr. Gillig, maybe just ask your questions
Yeah.
and then allow
Okay.
David to, is that all?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, thank you very much. David, do you want to?
You do have an application that you have to fill out in order to use the scale, in order just to get into the wasteworks system, that's all.
Okay.
So I have no way to enter their weight or to get paid at this time, you know, if they're not in the system already.
Okay, thank you for
I
clarifying.
mean, they can fill out their application and get sent to City Hall, and then by the next time they come in. But what I have done with some, though, is that we have a 50-pound limit per bag. So I have let them weigh on the scale, and then for every 50 pounds that they have, I sell them that many stickers, and then we just rip them up, toss the stickers in, just like you would if you were the bags. So I have done that with residents.
Thank you for clarifying. We're still in the public hearing. Any other public comments on this matter? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Any further questions from council? Seeing none, how would the council like to proceed? We do have a recommended motion from the transfer station superintendent.
And we are missing one
We are missing one,
counselor.
so,
Too much coffee today.
two,
I can filibuster if we'd like.
But maybe by the time you finish reading the motion.
yeah, this one is a little more,
Good point.
this one's a little more friendly.
While we're waiting for Steve, I am content to read the motion. We can wait for a second. Not a literal second, but a second.
For someone to second the motion?
Yes, and so this way,
Sure,
yeah, we can get the ball rolling but not fully commit.
that sounds good.
Let's see how we do with numbers. Okay. I move to approve the increase of trash stickers from $4, from $3 to $4, and increase the scale tonnage fee from $110 to $160 a ton, and create a minimum fee of $8 or 100 pounds, and require point of service payments.
Nailed it.
Too many numbers.
That's great.
Okay, so we have that motion. We are,
I'm hearing footsteps. Yep.
okay, there's Councilor Howard.
Steve, second the motion, second the motion.
Steve, we have, Councilor Smith has moved the recommended motion to increase the cost from $3 to $4, and then increase the scalage tonnage from 110 to 160 and creating a minimum charge of $8 or 100 pounds, and require point of service payments.
Thank you for the update. I couldn't wait any longer.
That's okay.
We all understand.
Coffee?
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Smith. Any further discussion from councilors on the motion? Councilor Smith?
A question for Counselor Shea. Were you inclined to go to the $5? Were you getting ready to propose that? Were you just teasing it out? One thing that occurred to me is we budgeted the $4, that increase for the full year, and it will be less than a half a year, so we will be under budget on that. To me, $5 is like a trigger. Like, I'll pay $4, but I'm not gonna pay $5. And, yeah, so it's why things are $4.99 instead of $5.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
So I just didn't know.
No, I don't have any problem with raising it to $5. and raising from 160, making it more than one.
It'd be 200 at
Make it
$5.
200.
Oh, for the
Okay.
equivalent?
And you gotta understand, I don't want the taxpayers to be footing the full bill. I have a funny feeling that, and I've seen this with municipal waste in other municipalities, and then it goes, and a lot of municipal waste also goes to some certain corporate places. I mean, there's other companies that deal with trash. They don't have any problems with talking trash. That's what they're in the business for. Waste Management is one of the largest corporations that take care of municipal waste and recycling. And they also generate electricity from the methane from their closed landfills. I'm not going to badmouth Casella. Casella does pretty much the same thing. They do the same thing, and both of them are in competition with each other. But it does cost a lot of money getting rid of it, okay? And the trucks are very complex as far as having trucks going around, picking up the trash and compacting it. The other thing is sometimes people do foolish things, and they throw things in the trash, and next year, the curbside's got a truck that, next year it's on fire. City of Bangor's had a truck catch fire. The city of Waterville has had trucks catch fire because someone put something in the trash bag, and the truck goes over and grabs it, and next thing you know, the driver's going along, and he goes, oh crap, there's smoke coming out of my truck. It's awful expensive to get rid of it. I don't have any problem but if you all feel that we should just go to $4 and go with that motion?
Before
Good.
we vote on the motion, I do have a question. Have steps been taken, I apologize, a lot of information has been thrown out, to explore other revenue sources to make it more budget neutral? I apologize, words are hard right now.
So, we mentioned the internal hauling and other things, but recycling, our recycling revenue is even down. It's a market, so it's a fluctuating market. So we're getting a lot less for our recyclables now than what we used to. I don't know, we talked about a lot, but I think this is our best path.
There's no quick fixes to it. These that we're talking about now, these are the things that we can do immediately. But it will be a broader, more comprehensive discussion that needs to take place before we can truly move forward with reducing this deficit.
Okay.
Counselor Smith?
I heard you, if I heard you correctly, say that the Solid Waste Committee did not discuss the $5.
We did
Is
not.
there a reason for that? I'll ask the question and then pontificate.
I mentioned before I didn't want to go too high because of what the gentleman mentioned earlier about dumpsters being cheaper. If they go ahead and get a dumpster.
Okay. So I guess it's been a really good conversation about what, incremental, how big a step, trying to make it so that the taxpayers, they're currently absorbing $300,000, how much?
Yeah.
But I also want to respect the committees that we've got that work on these. And if there's a solid waste committee that has been devoting time to this, it's kind of touchy to go with one 20-minute conversation, make the change. So I've appreciated the conversation about, does it make sense to go up to 5? But as we're considering the current motion, I'm more comfortable with the $4, I think.
Yeah, and I think that to your point, Marina, and, in terms of making this more cost neutral, this is a piece. We're going to see where this gets us. I think there's a lot of behavioral economics involved in this,
Yeah.
to Mr. Gillies' very good point, and the guy standing next to our Mr. Soper also has a separate way that, or what do you call them, the dumpsters for that. So not everybody can do that necessarily or has the space in their property, but we start raising the prices, we push more people in the dumpsters. We've talked to other people that have a separate consultant, or not a consultant, but a separate service that picks it up for cheaper than our stickers. What does that do to this if we raise it up? Maybe, I actually think it's these second pieces that'll be interesting. The, was it number 2, the tonnage fee, and then the, what was the other one? Oh, the point of service piece, and the minimum charge of $8. I actually like that, those might be, we'll do an analysis of those. And then, I know we had some conversations beforehand on, I think there's some things where you can outsource, but there's some things that you should be looking to an insource. And this might be one of those areas. If we only have a single bidder, if Casella is really the only bidder in town, they know that. They had a big increase last time around. So I think prepping a scenario where, hey, if we insource this, got a truck, had a few public works team members going out for a couple days a week, but then they can do other, we have an endless supply of public works related, which I think is the next motion to talk about, activities that might be more cost effective for the city. I know Councilor Halloran is going to have some strong opposition there. I think he's right in a lot of ways that can't beat a man at his own game with that. And you might think that the math makes sense on a spreadsheet on being cheaper for that in-source, but it may not because the,
Honestly, I would rather the city not get into having to go out and pick up curbside trash, because there's so much that goes along with that, okay? And people who do have dumpsters really, actually, maybe the company that's supplying you the dumpster is telling you you're getting a heck of a good deal, but actually, if the truck goes around and picks up dumpsters here in the city, there's a private company, and they bring it to our transfer station, all those trucks come in, they weigh up, and they go over, and he opens the door, and they dump out, and then they go back across the scales. Even the small guys that have 1-ton trucks.
we've also talked about some color bag changes as well, but yeah.
Manager Pierce, I think we've got a motion on the table. I think we've had a good.
And it's been seconded.
It's been seconded. I
We've
think we've
talked
had a
enough
very
about this.
robust conversation, and I think it's all been good. But I'd like to call the question and see.
Yeah, I'd like to see where this takes us first before we charge too much anyway.
So, with the motion.
I don't want to overcharge.
David,
We're not looking to make money,
So,
No,
move
I
the
think this
question.
is a good first step. And all those that agree with me, we're gonna, for all those in favor of the motion? Opposed? 6-1 carries. Thank you very much. David, Mike, thank you very much. Very helpful.
Good conversation.
Yeah,
Really your conversation.
thank you, David.
Council order number 19, or number 19 on the agenda, council order. Is council good? Do we want to, we've got 2 more agenda items and then push through, and then we can take a quick break before the executive session. Does that sound good for members?
Sounds good.
Okay. Number 19, council order number 122508, public hearing action on the request of the Highway Department to backfill an operator position. Mike Harris, Public Works Director.
Good evening again, Mike Harris, as he stated, Public Works Director, coming before you tonight. So this request is based on current staffing that we have at the Highway Department. With the addition of the Parks and Rec division and having to, help them be able to complete their workflows, we reallocated some of our personnel out of the Highway Department to help accomplish Parks and Rec activities, which were well-needed activities. The work that's been done in Knowlton Park and down at the harbor has been very beneficial to the city. But when you take a department that should have 14, last summer we had a departure, and that departure was not backfilled, so that put us at 13. And then we have 3 gentlemen that have been pretty much focused in the Parks and Rec area, so that puts us down to 10. And then we've had another employee who was injured and was going to be out for significant time, and so that employee is now transferred over to the water department. And so we're really short-staffed, and, you know, when you're looking at the scope of work that the highway department has, the tasks that we typically do, and then you add in all the stuff that just comes up every day, whether it's, you know, a dead animal on the side of the road, or a water main break, or a culvert failure. You know, we want to be able to provide the best services we can to the city of Ellsworth, but, you know, we need staff to be able to do that. And so, although, you know, creating a separate, or even creating within Public Works, a Parks and Rec team of 3 people and then backfilling 3 people to highway is not feasible this time. We would ask that we at least be able to backfill the 1 position that left during the summer for the rest of the fiscal year. And then we would ask for, during the budget process, to reauthorize the money for that position. The reason I'm here tonight is because the money for that position and our attempt to get to our 2.9% last year during the budget, one of the things we did was remove that salary from the highway department. And so the position is still there, but the salary is not there. And so I'm requesting that we use money from, that Charlie be able to use money from the local roads capital account that we have been fortunate enough not to have had to expend a lot of money out of this year, to fund this position until the next budget cycle. And then during this upcoming budget cycle, I will be asking for us to either just fund it through the general fund again, or there are possibilities to using maybe some TIF money that could be considered, but that would be for another time. But for tonight, I'm really just trying to get the ability to backfill that position and to approve using those funds from the local roads capital account.
Thanks, Mike.
Which doesn't really require a motion, by the way.
And I should note on just some clarifying there, you know, per the charter in terms of budget allocations, it allows the city manager to move money between a line item without council approval. If we were to say, hey, the highway department is, you know, very, very under budget, and we needed to move from a different car center or pull it from reserve accounts, that would require city council approval and vote. But as, you know, even while I might have the authority to not tell you all about this and backfill and move forward and do those, I wanted to make sure I was pretty upfront and also explain, you know, we are in many ways kind of lower on this budget piece because of a lot of the work that the highway department's done. The construction road, which we built with internal resources, and I'll have kind of a wrap up for this year end on accounting. You know, that was over a 3-week period of time, you know, 414 hours of our crew's work for $11,965. You know, we tracked the hours on the trucks, and this is even just in Excel. We don't have a digital system. Hopefully soon we will. That was able to save a ton of money. We didn't have to do the construction road off Long Lane. That was excellent. The next discussion we're going to have, we had a long conversation with the judiciary today that they're going to allow us to do a letter of credit as opposed to a performance bond for our part of the developer agreement to ensure that the city will meet its obligations, and if it doesn't, then the judiciary can pull from the letter of credit. That's going to save us about $85,000 because we don't have to do that piece as well. Really, the remaining piece for the courthouse road project in this year is going to be the electric. We're going to work with a local consultant. You know, we talked about that. I think that was before the city council. We tabled a motion to meet that part of the developer agreement. The judiciary also was kind enough to let us push that back out a bit. So, you know, the next step for us is really going to be doing the electric pieces, and we should be sufficiently under, even with this, to cover, you know, the remaining road expenses for the fiscal year and do this reallocation of resources. I'd also note that, you know, when I took this job, Chair Beal, former city manager said the best part about this is getting to know the highway teams and the teams that, the real guts of a city that I don't think you really realize until you work with these folks. You go out to digs with them in a rainy spring when it's freezing cold and they're in this trench box. And you're just seeing the work that they're doing when the rest of us don't have to be out there fixing a water main break. And then bam, 2 days later, they're doing this water main break a little ways down the road, working their tail off. And that's after a winter of just, snow plowing. I think Michelle called it the pride of Ellsworth, that, you can see those lines and how much this team works. They're doing incredible stuff. All of our guys, a lot of the highway department was the most representative at our leadership meetings. It wasn't just for managers, those leadership. We reached out to all staff. You can tell they just take a ton of pride in this work. And for Brian too, I think this will allow us to backfill and then potentially upgrade him to the highway superintendent from the foreman role. When he kind of took this job, we kept him at foreman, and this has been about a year and some change, and said, let's see how it's working out. I know we've been talking about managers getting overtime and some other pieces. This guy, I think, put in 160 hours of overtime last year during those snowstorms and still showed up to all my leadership meetings. He's the only person I've ever given permission to sleep during a meeting because you could tell he needed it. But the city is very lucky to have such a skilled group of people. Nate Hardwick, our crew leader, does incredible jobs. You've seen the upgrades to the parks this year, to Flowers on Main Street, once again, to the harbor being upgraded. These teams are also forward-looking in the modernization services. They want to keep being more efficient. This is a good investment for the city of Ellsworth.
Great. Thank you, Charlie. Councilors, any questions for this Mike or Charlie? Councilor Smith?
Asking questions so that I can better understand what we're talking about, knowing that they will not make me popular, but doing my job here. Charlie, how is it there's somewhere in here the language about we're shifting from line items, but you're talking about using TIF funds? No,
not on this one. This would just be, I think in the future, we'd consider TIF as part of the discussion here because of, there's 3 people working on Parks and Rec, doing economic development activities.
So look at the financial impact. To
Yes,
restore
that is an
funding
error.
of the position.
That is an error. I saw it before the meeting tonight, so I have a revised memo that takes that part out of
Okay,
it.
so to my credit,
Yes,
that was a legit question.
it was a
because-
very legit.
You're still not popular, but.
I was ready, I was ready for you to say that, somebody to say that, so.
And
That is an
I should
error.
also note on the TIF piece, Michelle and Mickey Sumter actually was just at EBDC with them. There was a lot of pieces where they were supposed to prorate a lot of the equipment due to the increase in economic development activity with the highway department. I don't think a lot of that has happened. I think there are some other areas that we'll look towards the next budget cycle on, maybe bond and debt service payments to subsidize a bit of the highway department with, a lot of the stuff they're doing, the extra stuff is because of how much increased economic development activity we're seeing. So that's really kind of a future area. But for this cycle, there's sufficient reserves to kind of transfer funds between the cost centers.
Okay, and was that correction somewhere else? It's not one of, okay.
We'll let you turn in your homework.
Thank you.
If you look on the back, on the financial impact, you'll see the correction.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate that.
I showed it to you. I don't think you can see it.
Just take your word.
You're muted, but we can guess what you said, Tabitha.
I believe Mike.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Are you in pain or are you just making faces at us?
yeah,
So,
she's
the
dealing with
corrections
that.
you'll find in the financial impact.
So, there was, I'm trying to remember if it was a workshop, but Roddy, I'm kind of looking at you and Mike. There was conversation about Parks and Rec being able to share staff back and forth as needed. So, because I genuinely want to understand, what does Parks and Rec do in the winter? And is there the possibility of shifting staff back and forth? I will say, walking here for the Finance Committee meeting, I saw 2 of your guys loading the park benches on a trailer. I was very sad to see them go, but.
So, Roddy Erlenbach, Parks and Rec Director.
Thanks.
In the wintertime, we're trying to move forward with some of the rec-based things that we discovered the citizens wanted. We're trying to maintain the walking pedestrian path so it's usable in the wintertime after it snows. We're trying to plow it and treat it with sand and salt.
So are you talking sidewalks or more than sidewalks?
More than sidewalks, the pedestrian bike path that runs from the industrial park all the way out to Birch
okay.
Avenue. We're trying to maintain some
Okay.
paths in the Knowlton Park. We're trying to maintain the walkway through the Harbor Park. We're trying to plow and ice, treat for ice the Branch Lake Public Forest Access Road,
Okay.
the Jordan Homestead Trailhead. We're doing some tree removal at the Harbor Park. Now that there's nobody in there, we can do that type of stuff. But anytime it snows, anytime we have this emergency response to snow removal, the Parks and Rec crew comes in and they work under the Highway Department during those snow emergencies.
Okay, thank you. I'm assuming that I'm not the only one who was wondering about the shift back and forth, and so having that information about, it sounds like some of that might actually have been Highway Department,
It
or
was.
simply wasn't done, so we're getting a higher level of service, or
We're,
it's part of the
we're
shift.
reducing the services that we're providing in the park spaces. It's not the same level of service that we're doing in the summertime, but we're
Right.
still emptying trash in the Knowlton Park. We're still changing the can
Okay.
liners. We're still going around, because there's been sentiment from the residents and taxpayers that they want to continue to use that recreational
Right.
infrastructure during the winter.
It's
So that's
really
what we're doing.
helpful. I appreciate the information. Thank you.
And I should note, yeah, that was one of the complaints I got a lot last year, was Knowlton Park just filling up with trash. You can say, like, it's just a seasonal park, we're not there, but it kept moving through. And I think with the new Parks and Rec digital systems and eventually the Public Works stuff, and still, how can we toggle between these two pieces? There is an endless amount of backlog in both Parks and Rec category and the Public Works piece. It's about of course, when it's snowing,
Yeah.
that's a big piece. We talked about that with the sidewalks. I think this backfill too will hopefully, I know it's not necessarily going to be a CDL person, but there's a chance that we could get an operator with a CDL that would come in, that maybe not, it would depend on the applicant pool, but that could add another piece to that, and then we could have a crew that's more focused in the sidewalks, so, and one of the routes could be taken over by, this CDL driver, so we'll get better snow response too, and our sidewalks will get to faster, so.
Helpful information, I
No,
appreciate it.
Good questions. This was noticed as a public hearing, so I'm going to open the public hearing. If anyone has any comments regarding this issue, please approach the dais.
So, just Roger Gilly, city resident. Shooting from the hip, obviously Mike is very understaffed. But, so he's looking for somebody to hire for the, out to the garage. So my thoughts are, instead of hiring somebody for the garage, if we move somebody back from Parks and Rec that already is established, through all the stuff that the city does, and we hired somebody to work for the Parks and Rec, I feel that we could probably pay less money, because technically we could hire somebody that doesn't have a CDL, which would be cheaper. And they would, they could be the person that we'd put in the sidewalk machine to plow or whatever. But just right out of the gate, I think it would be, if we're looking for help, I think that would be at first, the way to go, because it'd probably be easier to hire somebody, without the CDL than it is to find somebody with a CDL, to accomplish, some of your needs, but yet not dropping another big burden on the taxpayers, paying somebody's salary or by the hour, a higher amount to come in and, just work for the highway department, because we're paying a pretty good penny for the guys now to mow grass, plant trees, and weed the flowers. And I think we could probably do that type of work without the cost that we're paying our truck drivers to do that now. So that was just my thought on things.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Any other further questions from councilors? Seeing none, this was not, there's no action from the council, as I understand it, so thank you very much, Mike, for the update, and Charlie. We'll move on to council agenda item number 20, council order number 122507, public hearing and action on the request of the finance director to authorize a letter of credit or surety bond for the Merrill Lane Road Improvement Project as required by the development agreement with the state judiciary. Thank you guys all for coming. We'll let you awkwardly leave.
You're welcome to stay.
Yeah, you
I
guys-
mean,
yeah. See you guys, thank you. Thank you. See, we have our deputy city manager.
Yeah, I'm pinch hitting, I guess. Sarah Devlin, Deputy City Manager. We have been working, Nate and I, hi Nate, he's up there on the screen. We have been working with our bond counsel to fulfill the requirement as part of the developer agreement with the Courthouse Road project with the state. Part of that developer agreement required us to get a performance bond for the construction of our road, of the Courthouse Road, for the final road, not the access road. So the access road is complete. So we worked with our bond counsel to understand the different option we had, as Charlie mentioned. Going for a full performance bond as if we were a private contractor was going to cost us at least $75,000 more, probably $85,000, even to have access to the money if we needed it. But a letter of credit is no cost to the city, and it still guarantees that if for some reason we don't complete the construction road, the state can step in and have access to that funding to complete it on our behalf. So, Nate, I don't know if you have anything to add about the differences between the two, but we worked with the state. Go ahead.
No, only that we reached out to Maine Municipal, who got us in touch with Hub International when it came to the performance bond. And then we also reached out to our bank, which is First National, for the letter of credit. So we have those two options available, like Sarah mentioned. That's all I had to mention.
So we had a lengthy discussion today with the state. They were in full support of the letter of credit. We have worked with our council, their council, to establish who the beneficiary is going to be, the logistics of it, so they're in full support. So we just need the approval of this council to move forward and get that letter issued.
Great, thank you. So just to clarify, of the two options, you're proposing the one that doesn't cost us $80,000.
Correct. An initial upfront cost of $80,000, $85,000. It costs just our bond counsel time, staff time, to get the letter of credit, and then it does open up access to that funding should we need it. And the other difference, I'm sorry, with the letter of credit versus the performance bond is if for some unforeseen reason we did have to draw down the bond, we would have to pay that back virtually immediately, where the letter of credit, we have, I believe, a year to start paying that back.
A year, yeah.
Great. Manager Pierce?
Yeah, just trying to get better at explaining like our purpose. I know we have so many pieces, but some of the counselors weren't part of this to begin with, but you know, the judiciary chose a location originally that, you know, our some former city officials, without notifying the council, had said that you can build there. It received some pretty significant pushback. It was in a neighborhood zone. And, you know, I originally went to that piece on like, hey, maybe this is just not in my backyard, but you could tell there was like 150 people at that meeting. You talk to former councilors who would help zone that as a neighborhood zone for a big, you know, $50, $60 million piece of public infrastructure. Like, is that the best place for it? And should the city, even though, you know, it wasn't our project, should we try to step in to see if we could mediate a better location? We had a very long process for that on choosing other places. And then when we found a place that worked for the judiciary and worked with the council and the community, through that engagement process, we went through a long-form negotiation to what are the conditions that would have to be met for the city, just sort of from a base level, whatever they would have at that Surrey Road location, access to power, access to utilities by their timeframes, and entered into a developer agreement between us with things like building the access road, which we've done and met those timelines. This electric by a certain time, the road completed by a certain time, so we've met all those timelines thus far. Hopefully, we'll never have to draw down on this, but this is a way for us to avoid the judiciary could say you got to do the performance bond, and it's going to be $85,000, but they've been very amenable and to this whole process. Honestly, I was kind of surprised that they agreed to the land swap in the first place. And sometimes we think in the near term on improving a service by the end of this year or this next year. Like this to me is one of those pieces. Like this is the next 50 years. That courthouse was 100 years of use, and is going to be a big upgrade for the city. Gives us new potential access to the kind of Cardbrook area. It's almost like a 17-acre parcel. If you haven't been there, council, yet, and you'd like to go, I'm happy to give you a tour. Also access to the rail trail, which the city currently doesn't have any access to for public parking, and a bunch of other pieces that can go into that. So this is kind of one of the final pieces for us to settle for the developer agreement. And again, it's saving us money.
Just to clarify, this is only if we don't fulfill our obligations and agreements. As long as we do what we agreed to do, we never touch this line, and it's just there so the judiciary feels good.
Correct.
about what we're doing.
That's was one of their conditions and what previous councils agreed to. If that council vote, I think, was 6-1, for the judiciary, what if the next council says 6-1, we don't want this, and then they have to build the road? They needed some guarantees that wouldn't be the case. So this is part of that guarantee, and I think that's pretty typical when a city is becoming the developer on something like this. It's a 0.22-mile road, so.
It's insurance to them.
Yep.
And I think that they were amenable to going with the letter of credit when they realized that their access was already done.
There we go. Councilor Halloran? Go ahead. No, I was going to say if any other councilors have questions.
Charlie mentioned 6-1, I'm the one. Surprise, surprise. I find this extremely dangerous. Number one, the city should not be in the development business. I was the one that was against that. We shouldn't be developing real estate. We shouldn't be building roads. And I find it extremely interesting that there is a performance bond or a letter of credit required on the city of Ellsworth that has agreed to build a free road. That haunts me, that the city is building a free road which was agreed upon. And now we have to buy a performance bond or a letter of credit that's irrevocable to build somebody a free road. Beyond that, the way I understand this irrevocable line of credit, if the city does not perform, the state can draw on that line, and the city has to pay it back. I was the first to tell you that I don't believe we should be building any roads. But turning the state loose on $1.5 million that we've signed up to pay back for, if there's some disagreement on the quality of this road, is dangerous. I would rather pay the fee up front and let the bonding company and the state fight it out and keep us out of it. We could build the road and there could be some squabble and they can draw on that credit line. This is crazy.
Any other questions or comments from councilors? Councilor Shea?
You're going to get two against this thing, because I don't want the city of Ellsworth funding anything for the state of Maine, because they got deeper pockets than we do. All right? No, we're taking, and on top of that, we're taking the parcel property off the tax rolls. When they could have worked better with the county commissioners and come up with some other proposed plan, but instead, they're doing just like they've done with other communities and decide that they gotta have their own judicial center, okay? And already, I think we've gone and done more than what we really needed to do. And we bent over backwards and helped them find another place, because they screwed up and wanted to build in a place that the residents didn't want it. And furthermore, it didn't even pass all the tests to be able to have it there. They didn't do all the steps that they were supposed to do. and it was gonna damage environmental impact on stream that spring fed and leading down to the Union River watershed. No, I don't want a thing to do with the state holding us accountable for their shortcomings. We shouldn't, maybe, yeah, find the road, but let let the state judicial system feel the real pain on how it really costs to build something. Instead, they want to pass it off.
Manager Pierce?
I would note that I think that's kind of why they, this was a request of that piece, was if the city changed its mind. I think to Steve, your point on, I think really the, and I can ask, I'm sure, your legal opinion, but really the question here is, do we move forward with the letter of credit at this piece, and the city has to make those agreements, or does the city pay upfront $85,000, not do either and not build the road, guaranteed lawsuit, guaranteed the judiciary wins, and we have to pay their legal fees, and we still have to pay for the road. Like, that decision was made by a prior council, and is, to your point, Steve, you voiced your concerns. Councilor Shea, that was absolutely, that many of those.
Stuck with going with the bond.
I think
If I could just speak, just to me, I agree. That I was the one that was against the road. It passed, we're here. But boy, to turn, to leave us out that they can draw on that credit line, and let the bonding company and the state fight it out, and we know our costs up front. Boy, we are taking some dangerous chances there. The city of Ellsworth is not, I'm not saying anything bad about anybody, but we're not road builders, and this is our first road that we're building. Let's not turn the state loose with $1.5 million that we may have to pay back if it's not accepted. Pay our bills up front, and let the bonding company deal with the state. The bonding company says, we will build the road if you don't build the road. And there's a known cost there, but if there's a dispute and they've got access to that credit line, I don't want any part of that.
Any other councilor comments or questions? Seeing none, this is, notices of public hearing, so I'm going to open the public hearing. Open public, provide comments on this. I ask that you state your name for the record and keep your comments to 3 minutes or less.
Ralph Jordan, Ellsworth. I just have a question for you, and maybe you can answer it, I don't know. Because I expressed some concern about this when we went through this process and decided to build there. I know we putting utilities in there. Are we responsible for putting the water pipe and the sewage pipe in there? And you told me they were budgeted $56,000 for dynamite or something, blasting. Well, here, go ahead.
No, I was gonna wait for all your, I just write them down and then, yeah.
I just got a comment, actually. 1.5 miles from there, because at the time, I told you to go behind LLB and look at the 30-foot section of lidge. 1.5 miles from there, the same piece of lidge just cost $181,000 over budget in dynamite. I understand you're upset, Steve. You haven't seen anything yet when they start dynamiting to get that water pipe in there. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public have comments on this matter? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Councilors, any further questions, comments on this? Manager Pierce?
Just a note to Mr. Jordan's points on the utility. Yes, it's kind of the, in general, what would have been available at the Surrey Road location, which was right at the road, would be available here. So water, electric, sewer, and. Yeah, and I recently actually got an update by our engineer for obvious reasons. I think we're going to keep that because we will be likely going out to private contractors for a lot of this. The city's not going to be doing blasting, these other pieces. We did drill borings of all of these areas, and to make some of those estimations from the engineer we worked on this project with. Most of and we just built a construction road, to a pretty good standard through this area. I think most of that potential blasting will be a little bit in a single area. I actually think the judiciary's blasting in their kind of land moving up in their areas where the more kind of problematic areas might be. So we're hopeful on that. We do have an updated cost estimate, and I don't know, we've got the construction road piece out. I know Councilor Halloran, we've talked about clerk of the works. That was a little bit expensive, but maybe with the new procurement and contracting system, we could go back out for this again. I've also thought about bringing the firm that brought in there at a much smaller level to kind of oversee some of these, what should be private, what should be public. We talked about the electrician that's local here that's going to help us on the next phase on, getting, that's one of the things that we're saving some money on here too, not spending $90,000 on temporary power. Let's do that into some permanent, while we've already got the road dug up, underground power, water and sewer. We'll do some cost estimations between what a public works team based on our hourly rates in that kind of fall period when we can do this, and if we have the capacity to do it, and if it might be cost effective to do water and sewer type pieces, but of course sidewalks, the paving of the road, engineering work, blasting, these will all be private contractors. And I'm not going to speak too much now on what our updated estimates are there, because I don't want to telegraph to a potential private contractor how much we're willing to pay on those pieces.
All I wanted to do was to bring that up, that the same piece of rock that you're building that courthouse on, same piece of rock, a mile and a half, was $181,000 over what the budget is for that.
Yeah, and I think this is Maine, so ledge is always an issue. That's why we did a lot of the borings, I think, but to your point, Mr. Jordan, those are estimates, and they're in any construction project. Right now, we've been under budget on a fair amount of items. I'm happy with that, but I think the new highway garage they built over at Acadia National Park, this ledge was a major issue, and there was a huge cost overrun on that piece, if I remember correctly, when I had some conversations there. Fortunately, this is a 0.22 mile road. There's only one piece that we really feel like is going to need that, but that will be, to Mr. Jordan's point, that will probably be the biggest variable when we go out to bid on that ledge and blasting on what it could and couldn't be. So, we have some flexibility in our budgets. We got some updated estimates, and we'll move forward.
Thank you. We have a suggested motion provided by the city manager and the deputy city manager. Before that, I think for myself, this road is a public investment and there's risk involved. And I hear the comments against it. I understand that. I think they're valid comments, valid points. But knowing how far we've come, where we started with this courthouse issue, I'm excited for the investment that the city's making in this road, for the potential, not just for getting a $60 million public judicial center onto this property that's needed for our community, but also the potential and opportunity that helping get this road in there, what it does for development, for economic development, housing development. So there is risk involved. I hear that loud and clear. But I am in full support of this project, and if our finance team and managers are saying let's move forward with line of credit, I'm in support of it, so I plan to vote in the affirmative for this motion as suggested if the council so chooses to advance it. With that, would anyone like to propose a motion?
I will move to accept the letter of credit agreement to First National Bank with a rate of 5.39% as required in Section 3 of the development agreement between the City of Ellsworth and the State of Maine Judiciary for a new Hancock County courthouse. And I would like to speak to my motion if it is seconded.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. Councilor Smith?
Again, really interesting and important conversation, but I come back to what we're dealing with tonight is simply, as we move forward, are we going to spend $85,000 on a bond? Or are we going to accept this risk that we can't deliver on a $1.5 million road by the end of 2027. And in watching the progress that we've had to date and knowing the work of the road crew as they've been devoted to, I think, proving themselves on this, I am comfortable that saving the $85,000 makes sense. And so I'll be supporting the motion.
Councillor Shea?
Because I voiced my opinion and my opposition to the whole thing. But I would not, I would rather have a bond, have a bonding company. A letter of credit is not a good idea, because given the track record on how they went about the whole thing first process, I know how state government works. Some of those people are like 6 pay grades, or should be paid, doing 6 pay grades below what they're doing right now, okay? I don't want to do a letter of credit. 'Cause they'll find something wrong, and then next year we're on the hook.
Any other councillors? Seeing none, motion. All those in favor? Councillor White in the affirmative. All those against? 5-2, motion carries. Agenda item 21 is an executive session to discuss personnel matters in accordance with MRSA Title I, Chapter 13, Section 405, Paragraph 6A. With that, we would ask the public and staff to get out of here. No.
Thank you, Sue.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks, Sue.